I should have known better than to fall asleep at my mother-in-law's house. That moment of weakness, that single stupid nap, cost me everything. The afternoon had been deceptively peaceful. Sunlight streamed through Cora's pretentious lace curtains, warming the overstuffed armchair I'd curled up in after lunch. My wedding ring caught the light as I drifted off, the sapphire gleaming like a promise. When I woke up, the ring was gone. "Oh, Wendy dear, are you sure you were wearing it?" Cora's voice dripped with false concern as I tore through cushions and crawled under furniture. You know how scatterbrained you can be. My hands shook as I checked my pockets for the 4th time. The ring had been snug on my finger when I dozed off. I always twisted it when I was nervous, and God knows being around Cora made me nervous enough. 3 years of marriage to her precious Marcus, and she still treated me like an intruder. "I had it on, Cora. I know I did." My voice cracked. The ring wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was Marcus's grandmother's sapphire, reset into a delicate platinum band. The one family heirloom Cora had grudgingly allowed him to give me. She clicked her tongue, straightening a crystal vase with mathematical precision. Well, these old houses do have a way of swallowing things. Perhaps it's the curse. "What curse? Oh, didn't Marcus tell you?" Her smile was razor-thin. "His grandmother always said that ring brings misfortune to anyone who isn't truly meant to be part of this family." The room suddenly felt airless. I watched her arrange flowers with those perfectly manicured hands, the same hands that had probably slipped the ring off my finger while I slept. But I couldn't prove it. Just like I couldn't prove she'd accidentally destroyed my wedding photos, or misplaced the pearl earrings Marcus gave me for our first anniversary. "I need to call Marcus," I mumbled, fumbling for my phone. "Of course, dear, though he's in that important client meeting until 6. Cora's voice followed me into the hallway. "I'm sure he'll be just devastated. That ring meant so much to our family." Our family, not my family, never my family, according to Cora. Marcus answered on the 4th ring, his voice distracted. "Hey babe, everything okay?" "The ring is gone." The words came out in a rush. "I was at your mum's and I fell asleep for maybe 20 minutes and—" "Slow down," he cut in. "What do you mean, gone?" "Someone took it while I was sleeping. Your mother, Wendy." His sigh felt like a slap. "Mom would never do that. You probably just misplaced it. We'll look for it when I get home, okay?" "But Marcus, I've got to go. We're about to present. Try not to upset Mom over this, all right? You know how sensitive she is about family things." The call ended. I stood in Cora's perfect hallway, staring at my bare hand. 3 years of trying to prove myself worthy of her precious son, of swallowing her subtle jabs and helpful suggestions, of watching Marcus choose peace over truth every single time. "More tea, dear." Cora appeared with a fresh cup, sympathy and triumph warring in her eyes. "Don't worry too much about the ring. After all," she patted my cheek with cold fingers, "some things just aren't meant to be." I took the tea with numb hands, watching steam curl up like question marks. In the polished silver tray beneath the cup, I caught my reflection and something else. Through the doorway behind me, barely visible in the mirror's surface, I saw Cora's hand slip something into the pocket of her cardigan, something that glinted blue in the afternoon light. My heart stopped, then started again with a vengeance. For 3 years, I'd played the dutiful daughter-in-law, desperate for acceptance. I'd let her subtle cruelties slide, kept the peace for Marcus's sake. But watching her pocket my wedding ring, my ring, something inside me snapped. She thought she'd won. She thought I was weak. I lifted the teacup to my lips, tasting nothing but rage. "You're right, Cora," I said softly. "Some things aren't meant to be, like pretending we're one big happy family anymore." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but I was already turning away, my mind racing. She had no idea what she'd just started, no idea at all. I was done being the good daughter-in-law, done playing by her rules. It was time to make some rules of my own. The jewelry store's bell chimed mockingly as I pushed through the door. 3 days without my ring, and the bare spot on my finger still felt like an accusation. I'd torn Cora's house apart twice more while she was out, searching until my hands shook, but we both knew I wouldn't find it. She'd made sure of that. I need a replacement wedding ring, I told the jeweler, Brad, something that looks exactly like this. I pulled up a photo on my phone. Me and Marcus on our wedding day, the sapphire catching light as we cut the cake. Brad studied the image, his expression oddly intent. Family heirloom, wasn't it? I remember when Marcus brought it in for resizing. You know Marcus? I know the whole family. He glanced at the empty store before lowering his voice, including Cora. Something in his tone made me lean forward. The ring disappeared while I was at her house. Ah, just one syllable but loaded with meaning. Not the first time something's vanished around Cora, is it? My chest tightened. What do you mean? Let's just say you're not the first daughter-in-law to lose something precious. He pulled out a small notepad, scribbling something. If you're interested in the real story, meet me at Carter's Cafe tomorrow at 2. There's someone you should talk to. The bell chimed again. I turned to see Marcus walking in, his smile faltering as he spotted me. Wendy? What are you doing here? I grabbed the note from Brad, shoving it into my pocket. Looking for a replacement ring, since you don't believe your mother took the original. Not this again. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his tell when he's stressed. Mom's been crying, you know. She can't believe you'd accuse her of theft. Of course she was crying. Cora's tears were weapons, precisely aimed. Did she mention she told me about some family curse? How the ring brings misfortune to people who don't belong? She was probably just telling you the family history. She stole it, Marcus. While I was sleeping, I saw her pocket something shiny right after— Enough, his shout echoed off the glass cases. God, Wendy, why do you have to make everything so difficult? Mom's not perfect, but she's family. Why can't you just try harder to get along? Try harder, like I hadn't spent 3 years shrinking myself to fit into Cora's narrow definition of worthy. Like I was the problem. You know what? You're right. My voice was steel. I should try harder. In fact, I turned to Brad, who'd been very interested in his inventory during our argument. I'd like to order an exact replica. Price is no object. Marcus's face softened with relief. See? That's better. We'll get you a new ring and everything can go back to normal. Normal. The word tasted like poison. I'll email you some options, Brad said, handing me his card. His eyes flicked meaningfully to my pocket, where his note lay hidden. Outside, Marcus touched my arm. I've got to get back to work. Thanks for being reasonable about this, babe. Mom will be so happy you're moving past it. I'm sure she would be. Happy to see me submit again, crawl back into my place like a good little daughter-in-law. Of course, I said, kissing his cheek. Tell your mother not to worry about a thing. I waited until his car disappeared around the corner before pulling out Brad's note. The handwriting was cramped but clear. Uriel's death wasn't an accident. Ask about the insurance policy. And the first, Mrs. Marcus Sr. My hands trembled. Uriel, Marcus's father, had died before I met the family. Car accident, Cora had said. Tragic but simple. But nothing about Cora was simple, was it? I pulled out my phone and called the one person who'd tell me the truth. Tori, I need your help. Remember when you said your mom used to work at the insurance company that handled local claims? Any chance she could pull some old files? My best friend's silence spoke volumes. Wendy, what are you getting into? Something big, I said, watching my reflection in a store window. The woman staring back looked different somehow, harder. And I need to know how deep it goes. This isn't just about the ring anymore, is it? No. I touched my bare finger, thinking of Cora's smug smile, Marcus's willful blindness. It's about justice, and I'm going to get it, with or without my husband's help. The truth was out there, buried in old files and forgotten stories. And tomorrow, at 2 o'clock, I was going to start digging. Carter's Cafe smelled like burnt coffee and secrets. I fiddled with the cheap replacement ring I'd bought at the mall, a temporary shield against questions I wasn't ready to answer. The metal felt wrong, hollow, like everything else in my life lately. Brad was late. I checked my phone again, seeing another missed call from Marcus. He'd been hovering since our jewelry store confrontation, trying to smooth things over with forced cheerfulness and surprise takeout dinners, as if pad thai could make up for choosing his mother's lies over his wife's truth. Sorry, I'm running behind. Brad slid into the booth across from me, followed by an elegant older woman with sharp eyes. This is Patricia. She was Marcus Sr.'s first wife. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. First wife? Patricia's smile was winter cold. Cora doesn't mention me much, I imagine. Bad for her perfect family narrative. She pulled out a worn envelope. But I've been waiting 25 years for someone to ask the right questions. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were newspaper clippings, photographs, and what looked like photocopied insurance documents. Uriel's death was ruled an accident, Patricia said, tapping one of the articles. Single car crash on Ridge Road. But look at the insurance payout. The number made my eyes widen. That's enough to save the family business and set Cora up for life. Yes. Patricia's voice was steel wrapped in silk. And coincidentally, 3 months before the crash, Uriel changed his policy, removed me as beneficiary, even though I was still legally his wife, made Cora the sole recipient. But they weren't even married yet, I whispered. They were having an affair. I had proof, was ready to take him for everything in the divorce. Then suddenly, she spread her hands. Tragic accident, case closed, and 6 months later, Cora was the grieving widow running everything. My phone buzzed. Marcus's face lit up the screen, but I couldn't deal with his willful blindness right now. Not with these revelations burning holes in my brain. Why are you showing me this? Because history repeats. Brad leaned forward. That ring you lost, it wasn't just any family heirloom. It was Patricia's original engagement ring, the one thing Cora couldn't legally take from her. And now it's disappeared, just like every other threat to Cora's control. I have to tell Marcus, I said, gathering the documents with trembling fingers. He needs to know. He won't believe you. Patricia's words stopped me cold. I tried telling him years ago. He was only 12 when his father died, and Cora, she's very good at managing narratives, especially with her son. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. Marcus, who couldn't even believe his mother would steal a ring, would never accept this. Then what am I supposed to do? Be smarter than I was. Patricia stood, straightening her immaculate blazer. Cora's having her annual charity gala next week. All the old family friends will be there. People who remember what really happened. People who might talk, with the right encouragement. And the right evidence, Brad added meaningfully. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Tori. Found something major in Mom's old files. Call me ASAP. I looked up at Patricia, seeing my own pain reflected in her eyes. Did you ever get justice? No. She touched my cheap replacement ring gently. But maybe you can. For both of us. After they left, I sat staring at my cold coffee, mind racing. The gala was Cora's crown jewel, her yearly proof of perfect family leadership. The guest list would be full of people who knew her secrets, people who might have kept quiet out of fear or loyalty, but who might speak now if given the chance. My phone lit up with a text from Marcus. Mum wants us over for dinner tonight. Please come. She made your favorite pasta. Of course she did. Another performance of perfect mother-in-law concern, probably planning to suggest I was too careless to handle precious family heirlooms. I touched the envelope of evidence, thinking of Patricia's lost years, of all the lives Cora had carefully arranged to suit her narrative. Then I texted back, wouldn't miss it, time to give the performance of my life. Let Cora think she'd won, that I was properly cowed. Let her plan her perfect gala, invite all her carefully managed witnesses. I had a week to turn her showcase into a reckoning. And this time, I wouldn't be playing by her rules. Cora's pasta sauce filled the dining room with a sickly sweet aroma of manufactured perfection. I pushed strands of linguine around my plate, hyper-aware of my mother-in-law's predatory gaze. Not hungry, dear. Her concern could have fooled anyone who hadn't seen her true face. You seem distracted lately. Marcus mentioned you've been making odd appointments, running mysterious errands. My fork froze mid-twirl. I forced a smile, though my pulse hammered. Just busy with work and, dealing with the ring situation. Oh, that, she waved dismissively. I thought we'd moved past that unfortunate accusation. Marcus squeezed my knee under the table, a warning. Play nice. Actually, I said, setting down my fork, I wanted to ask about the gala. I'd love to help with the planning this year. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Chelsea, Marcus's sister, stopped mid-chew to stare at me. Cora recovered first, her smile tightening. How unexpected. You've never shown interest before. I know, but I've been thinking about what you said, about really becoming part of the family. The lies felt like glass in my mouth. I want to do better. Well, Cora dabbed her lips with a monogram napkin. I suppose you could help Chelsea with the place cards. Under supervision, of course. Chelsea brightened. We're working on them tomorrow morning. You should come over. Perfect. Access to the guest list, just like that. Speaking of family involvement, Cora continued, I've been meaning to ask, have you and Marcus discussed children yet? The family name needs carrying on, after all. My carefully constructed mask nearly slipped. Marcus stiffened beside me. Mum, we've talked about this, he said quietly. It's not the right time. It's never the right time with some people. Cora's eyes locked onto mine. Though I suppose it's for the best. Children do need stability. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. I gripped my water glass, remembering Patricia's words about Cora's talent for managing narratives. She was already laying groundwork, painting me as unstable, unfit. If I moved against her now, how would that story spread? I should check on dessert. Cora rose gracefully. Chelsea, help me in the kitchen. The moment they left, Marcus turned to me. Thank you for trying. Mom seems really impressed. I stared at him. This man I loved who couldn't, or wouldn't, see the daggers beneath his mother's smiles. Do you want children, Marcus? What? Where's this coming from? Just answer the question. He ran a hand through his hair. Eventually, yeah. But we agreed to wait. Focus on our careers first. No, I said softly. You agreed. After your mother spent 3 months making comments about my unstable background, my questionable family history. That's not fair. Mom's just protective. Of what? Her control. The words spilled out before I could stop them. Did you know about your father's first wife? His face went blank. Patricia, what does she have to do with anything? Have you ever wondered why she disappeared? Why nobody talks about her? She abandoned us. His voice hardened. Mum told me. Your mother tells you a lot of things. From the kitchen, Cora's laugh rang out like breaking crystal. Marcus's jaw clenched. Don't. His voice was low, warning. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're planning with all these secret meetings, just don't, please. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, saw the scared 12-year-old boy who'd lost his father and clung to his mother's version of reality like a life raft. How much would it destroy him to learn the truth? Dessert time. Chelsea bounced back in with plates of tiramisu. Wendy, come over early tomorrow. We can get coffee first, make a morning of it. I smiled, feeling Cora's watchful eyes from the doorway. Wouldn't miss it. Later that night, I sat in my home office, staring at Patricia's documents. My phone lit up with a text from Tori. You need to see these insurance records. Things aren't what they seem. Another text followed. Be careful. I think someone's been asking questions about your research. I touched my cheap replacement ring, thinking of Marcus's plea to let things be, of Cora's subtle threats about stability and family legacy. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. Dear Chelsea, looking forward to tomorrow. By the way, could you send me the gala guest list? I have some calligraphy ideas. The truth would hurt Marcus. It would shatter his world. But living this lie was already shattering mine. Chelsea's dining room table disappeared under a sea of cream-colored place cards. My sister-in-law hummed as she worked, her handwriting perfect and precise, just like everything else Cora had trained into her. "I still can't believe you volunteered to help," Chelsea said, passing me another stack of cards. "Mum was sure you'd quit after the first hour." I smiled, scanning the names as I arranged them. Judge Morrison, Dr. Phillips, the Harrises, all wealthy, all influential, all potential witnesses to Cora's past. "Guess I'm full of surprises." "Like that." Chelsea pointed to my replacement ring. "You got a new one so quickly. Didn't even make Mom feel bad about the original disappearing." My hand froze. "What do you mean?" "Oh, you know, Mom." Chelsea's voice dropped conspiratorially. "She has to test everyone. She did the same thing with my boyfriend last Christmas. Misplaced his grandfather's watch during his first overnight stay. Found it a week later, after he'd proved he could handle family pressure without cracking." The calligraphy pen slipped, bleeding ink across Senator Weber's name. "She does this often, only to people she's unsure about." Chelsea frowned at my ruined card. "I thought you knew. It's like an initiation thing. She'll give your ring back once you've shown you're committed to the family. That's why I was so impressed you didn't make a huge scene." My carefully constructed plan crumbled like wet paper. This wasn't just about me. How many others had Cora manipulated? How many more would she break? "Chelsea," I said carefully, "what do you remember about your dad's accident?" The humming stopped. "Why?" "Just wondering if you ever thought it was strange. The timing, the insurance." "Don't." Her voice sharpened to a point. "Mum said you might start asking questions. Said Patricia had poisoned you against the family." Ice slid down my spine. "You've talked to Patricia?" "Mum told me everything this morning. How Patricia's been stalking the family for years, spreading lies. How she's using you to get revenge." Chelsea's eyes filled with tears. "I thought you were really trying to be part of the family, but you're just... Chelsea, listen to me. Your mother is protecting us, like always." She stood abruptly, cards scattering. "I think you should go. The gala list will be handled by people we can trust." Her voice cracked. "I have to tell Mom about this, and Marcus. They need to know you're working with Patricia." No. "Chelsea, please. Get out." I drove home in a daze, mind racing. Cora had outmaneuvered me again, poisoning the well before I could even draw water. How many others had she warned? How many stories had she twisted? My phone buzzed. "Tori." I pulled over to answer. "Where are you?" She sounded breathless. "You need to get to my office, now." "I can't. Everything's falling apart." "The insurance records, Wendy. They're not what we thought. Uriel's death wasn't about the money. It was about covering something bigger. Something that ties directly to what's happening now." "What do you mean?" "Just come. And watch your back. Mom says someone accessed her files this morning. Someone with high-level clearance." I ended the call, hands shaking. Through the windshield, I spotted a familiar car parked across the street. The same one I'd seen outside Brad's shop yesterday. My phone lit up with texts. "Marcus. Chelsea just called. How could you?" "Chelsea. Mum's crying. I hope you're happy." Unknown number. "Back off now. Final warning." The walls were closing in. Soon Marcus would be home, demanding explanations. Cora would spin her web of lies tighter. And somewhere in Tori's files lay a truth that had people watching my every move. I thought of Chelsea's revelation about the ring test, about all the other lives Cora had casually broken and reformed to suit her needs, about Marcus, trapped in his mother's carefully constructed reality. My replacement ring caught the afternoon light, cheap and hollow, like everything in Cora's world. I turned the key in the ignition. Tori's office was 30 minutes away. Whatever truth waited in those files, it was time to face it. Because Cora hadn't just stolen my ring. She'd stolen years from Patricia, peace from Uriel, independence from her children. And she would keep stealing, keep breaking people, unless someone stopped her. I pulled into traffic, checking my mirrors for the familiar car. Let them follow. Let them report back. I was done playing Cora's game by Cora's rules. Time to change the game entirely. Tori's office building loomed dark against the sunset, most windows already black. My heels clicked through the empty lobby, each echo a reminder that I shouldn't be here after hours. But Tori had insisted. Safer this way, she'd said. Fewer eyes. The elevator dinged at the 4th floor. Through the glass walls of the insurance agency, I saw a single desk lamp burning. Tori hunched over her computer, face ghostly in the screen's glow. "Lock the door," she said without looking up. "The files are worse than we thought." I turned the deadbolt, then froze. On Tori's desk sat my sapphire ring. "Where did you get that?" She finally met my eyes. "Cora brought it in this morning, said she needed to discuss some old policies." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, Wendy. She knows we've been looking into Uriel's death." "What?" She had proof, photos of me accessing restricted files, recordings of phone calls. Said if I didn't help her, she'd have my mum charged with criminal breach of confidentiality. Mom could lose her license, face jail time. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. "So you're working for her now?" "No, I told her I would, but that's why I called you here." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "We have maybe an hour before she realizes I'm still in the office. Look at this." The screen filled with scanned documents, bank statements, property deeds, death certificates. My eyes caught on familiar names. Patricia, Uriel, Marcus Sr. Uriel was investigating financial irregularities before he died, Tori explained. Large transfers from the family accounts to offshore holdings, all authorized by Marcus Sr. "But Cora blamed Patricia for the missing money," I said. Said that's why they divorced. Patricia was the scapegoat, but look at the dates. The transfers continued after her divorce, after Uriel's death, and they're still happening. My head spun. That's impossible. Marcus Sr. is dead. Is he? She pulled up a grainy photo, timestamp from 3 months ago. A man at a cafe in Buenos Aires, older but unmistakable from the family photos in Cora's house. The insurance payout, the remarriage, the whole grieving widow act, it was all a cover, Tori said. Uriel discovered the truth, so they eliminated him, made it look like an accident, and now history's repeating. The pieces clicked horribly into place. The ring, the accusations, isolating me from Marcus. She's setting me up like she did Patricia. "Wendy," Tori gripped my arm. "There's more. I found emails between Cora and Marcus from last week. About you." "No. Please no." She turned the screen. There was my husband's familiar email signature, his words like knives. "Mum's right. Wendy's becoming unstable, dangerous. The sooner we handle this, the better." The room tilted. All those late nights at the office, the sudden business trips, his desperate attempts to keep peace with his mother. He wasn't protecting me. He was helping plan my removal. "We need to call the police," Tori said. "With what proof? Cora's already discredited me to everyone who matters. She'll say I forged the documents, that I'm having a breakdown." My voice caught. Even Marcus would testify against me. "Then run, I'll help you." A door slammed somewhere in the building. Footsteps approached. "They're here," Tori whispered. "Cora must have followed you." "Delete everything," I hissed. "They can't know you showed me." "But do it. I won't let her destroy your family too." As Tori erased the files, I grabbed my ring from her desk. Not to wear, never again, but as proof. Of what? I wasn't sure yet. The footsteps grew closer, multiple sets. "Backstairs," Tori mouthed, pointing to a fire exit. "I'll stall them." I slipped through the door just as voices reached the office. Marcus's among them, concern masking steel. "Tori, have you seen my wife?" The stairwell was dark, emergency lights casting everything in sick green. I descended as quietly as possible, mind racing. I couldn't go home. Couldn't trust my friends. Cora would have poisoned them all against me by now. Couldn't even trust my own husband. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Patricia here. Heard you found the truth. Need somewhere safe? I've been preparing for this day for 20 years. I reached the ground floor, heart pounding. Through the exit door's window, I saw shadows moving in the lobby. They thought they had me trapped, cornered. Just another inconvenient woman to be erased from the family story. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I had nothing left to lose. I texted back one word. Where? The endgame was starting, and this time, I wouldn't be the one who disappeared. The annual charity gala sparkled with false perfection, just like its hostess. I adjusted my borrowed dress, Patricia's from happier days, and touched the USB drive hidden in my clutch. Amazing how something so small could hold enough truth to shatter an empire. Ready? Patricia squeezed my arm. After 3 days of hiding in her cabin, planning this moment, she'd become more than an ally. She was my mirror, showing what I'd become if I let Cora win. I nodded, watching guests stream into the hotel ballroom. Everyone who matters is here. The board members, the old family friends. The witnesses, Patricia finished. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Time to give them something to really talk about. We separated at the entrance. The plan was simple. Patricia would handle the technical setup while I kept Cora distracted. One wrong move, and we'd both disappear, this time permanently. Cora spotted me immediately. Her perfect mask slipped for just a moment, showing genuine shock before recovering. Wendy, darling, her voice carried across the room, drawing all eyes to us. We've been so worried. Marcus has been absolutely frantic. Has he? I moved closer, noting how she subtly backed away. Strange, since he helped drive me away. You're not well, dear. We all see that now. Her concern was precision-engineered to draw sympathy from our growing audience. Why don't we step somewhere private? Talk about getting you help. No more private conversations, Cora. No more tests or disappearing rings or convenient accidents. I pulled out her precious sapphire ring. Looking for this? Her eyes narrowed. Behind her, I saw Marcus pushing through the crowd, face pale. Wendy, stop. His voice shook. Please. You're embarrassing yourself. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly? I turned to address the watching crowd. Did you all know about Marcus Sr.? That he's alive and well in Buenos Aires? A ripple of murmurs. Cora's smile turned glacial. Security, please. My disturbed daughter-in-law needs... The lights died. The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life, showing bank statements, emails, surveillance photos. Patricia's timing was perfect. That's Marcus Sr. last month, I announced as the Buenos Aires cafe photo appeared. Very alive for someone who supposedly died 20 years ago. Right, Cora? Lies, she hissed. Obvious forgeries from a sick... The money transfers are still happening, I continued. Same offshore accounts, same pattern Uriel discovered before his convenient accident. Would anyone like to see Cora's emails planning my own convenient accident? Enough. Marcus grabbed my arm. Mom, call the police. I yanked away. Did you even read the emails she sent you? Or did you just agree blindly, like always? Handle this like we handled Patricia. That's what she wrote. Did you know what that meant? His grip loosened. What? Show him, Patricia's voice rang out. She emerged from the AV booth, remote in hand. Show your son what his mother really is. The screen filled with security footage from 20 years ago. Cora and Marcus Sr. arguing with Uriel in his office. The timestamp matched the night of his accident. Turn it off, Cora commanded, but her voice had lost its power. The crowd watched in horror as the scene played out, as Uriel threatened to expose the fraud, as Cora smiled and offered him one last drink. That's not... Marcus staggered back. Mom? Everything I did was for you, Cora said, to protect our family's legacy. Patricia would have destroyed us. Uriel would have ruined everything. And now your wife... She turned to me, mask finally cracking. You ungrateful little snake. I gave you everything. You gave me tests and lies. You tried to erase me just like you erased them. And I'll do it again, she snarled, lunging for my throat. Several things happened at once. Marcus shouted, Patricia's heel caught Cora's ankle, and I finally fought back. We hit the ground hard, my sapphire ring flying from my clutch. It rolled across the floor, coming to rest at Chelsea's feet. The silence was deafening. Chelsea picked up the ring, looking between it and her mother with new eyes. Understanding bloomed across her face. Every test, every manipulation, every careful lie suddenly clear. Security's not coming, she said quietly. I called the police instead. The real police. They're already talking to Brad about Dad's accident. Cora's face crumpled, not from guilt or shame, but from the ultimate betrayal. Her perfect daughter, her trained ally, choosing truth over family loyalty. Chelsea, she breathed. No, Mom. Chelsea helped me up, pressing the ring into my palm. No more tests, no more lies. As police sirens wailed in the distance, I looked at my husband. Marcus stood frozen, years of carefully constructed reality shattering around him. I'm sorry, I whispered, meaning it. He nodded slowly, looking at his mother with stranger's eyes. The sapphire caught the light, no longer a symbol of belonging, but of survival, of truth finally, brutally set free. The police station coffee tasted like burnt regrets. I sat in the harsh fluorescent light, watching through one-way glass as Cora's perfect mask finally cracked completely. Her carefully styled hair had come undone, her designer dress wrinkled from hours of questioning. She looked smaller somehow, more human. She's confessing to everything, Detective Rivera said. The fraud, Uriel's murder, even the attempted hit and run that made Patricia leave town. 20 years of secrets spilling out. I touched my throat where bruises were forming. And Marcus Sr.? Interpol picked him up an hour ago. He's not as loyal to your mother-in-law as she thought. Of course not. Loyalty was something Cora demanded, never gave. The door opened. Marcus stood there, looking lost in clothes that had once fit perfectly. Can we talk? I followed him to a quiet corner, neither of us quite meeting the other's eyes. The sapphire ring felt heavy in my pocket, no longer a test of belonging, but a reminder of what we'd lost. I keep thinking about all the signs, he said finally. The missing jewelry, the convenient accidents, the way she'd twist everything until I couldn't trust my own memories. How did I not see it? Because she made sure you couldn't. She built your whole world, brick by brick, and you tore it down. His voice cracked. Thank you, and I'm sorry. I pulled out the ring, studying how it caught the harsh light. Did you know about what she was planning for me? No, yes, I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, that familiar nervous gesture now painful to watch. She said you were unstable, that you needed help. I thought I was protecting you. By helping her isolate me, gaslight me, I was wrong. His eyes filled with tears. So wrong. But I can fix this. We can start over, rebuild. No. The word came out gentle but firm. We can't. Wendy, please, I love you. But you don't trust me. You never have, not really. Every time I came to you about your mother, every time I needed you to choose truth over comfort, you chose her version of reality. That's not fair. She's my mother, and I'm your wife. Was your wife. I pressed the ring into his palm, closing his fingers around it. Give this to someone you'll believe in. Chelsea appeared in the doorway, eyes red but steady. They need you both. More statements about the gala. I nodded, stepping away from Marcus, but Chelsea caught my arm. Wait, there's something else you should know. She glanced at her brother. Something Mum said during questioning. About Dad, our real dad. Marcus went still. What about him? He's alive too, in witness protection. He didn't die in that crash. He faked it to escape Mom and Marcus Sr. He's been trying to contact us for years, but Mom intercepted everything. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. All those carefully maintained stories, the manufactured grief, the lessons about family loyalty, built on nothing but lies. Marcus stumbled back like he'd been struck. I can't. I need some air. We watched him leave, this man who'd lost every certainty in a single night. Will you be okay? I asked Chelsea. Eventually, Patricia's helping me arrange a meeting with Dad. Real Dad. She squeezed my hand. What about you? Through the window, I could see Tori waiting by her car, ready to drive me to my new apartment. Patricia stood with her, these two women who'd helped me find truth and strength when I needed it most. I will be, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. Chelsea hugged me fierce and quick. Thank you, for being braver than we were. I walked outside into dawn's grey light. The air smelled like rain and possibility. Behind me, the police station held Cora and her crumbling empire of lies. Ahead, uncertainty waited, but it was honest uncertainty, built on truth instead of tests. My finger felt naked without the ring, but lighter somehow. Like I could finally reach for things without checking for approval first. Ready? Tori called. I looked back one last time. Through the window, I saw Marcus watching me, still holding that sapphire ring. Still caught between truth and comfort, reality and illusion. But his choices weren't mine anymore. Ready, I said, stepping forward into my own unwritten story. Some things, after all, were always meant to be broken, including the chains we mistake for love.
Hi there. I'm Davina. My parents gave our family estate to my sister, without telling me. They signed the papers, planned the renovations, even called it a fresh start. I was never even in the room, but that wasn't the worst part. Years before, they'd quietly erased my name from everything, while I was still paying the bills, preserving the house, protecting the legacy my grandfather left behind. They thought I'd never find out, but they forgot about the hidden trust. What else did they hide from me? And how far were they willing to go? The house smelled like rosemary lamb and lemon polish, my mother's signature scent for family dinners. I stepped into the foyer of the estate I once called home, expecting nothing more than a lukewarm evening of polite conversation and awkward small talk. Instead, I walked into a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. Davina, my mother smiled, setting her wineglass down. You made it. Of course I made it. I always made it. Rain or shine, New York deadlines or not, I never miss these dinners. My sister Sabrina, perched confidently at the far end of the table, barely looked up from her phone. Her husband Martin, predictably overdressed in his usual off-duty CEO getup, gave me a nod like he was greeting an employee. Dinner carried on under the weight of rehearsed pleasantries. The roast was overcooked, the tension underdone. I picked at my food, catching Sabrina's smug glances and Martin's forced chuckles. He loved to hear himself talk, mostly about real estate trends and generational wealth. Ironic. Then Dad cleared his throat and the room shifted. We've made a decision, he said, laying his fork down with ceremonial precision. It's time we plan for the future of this place. I glanced around, confused. What do you mean? My mother folded her hands like she was praying. We're transferring ownership of the estate. Sabrina and Martin will be the new title holders. I blinked, just like that. No discussion, no heads up, no mention of me. Not even a fake nod of inclusion. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. They're planning to start a family, Dad continued. This home deserves to be filled with life again. And I guess I didn't count as life. Sabrina offered a tight smile, the kind you give someone you're firing. We're honored to carry on the Harrington legacy. Martin topped off his wine. He was already leaning back in Grandfather Emery's chair like he owned the damn place. That chair used to mean something. Emery used to sit there with his whiskey and tell me stories about the property's origins, how history had weight, how legacy should be protected, not pawned. Now that chair held a man who once suggested turning the library into a yoga studio. I forced a smile, trying to swallow the bitterness burning up my throat. Well, I said, my voice steady but hollow, congratulations. I stood slowly, my limbs heavy. I've got an early meeting. I should go. No one stopped me. No one even looked surprised. Outside, the October wind clawed at my coat as I walked to my car. The estate stood behind me, lit up like a stage set. A house full of family, yet somehow I'd never felt more like a stranger. As I gripped the steering wheel, one thought rang louder than the rest. They've already made their choice. But they forgot one thing. I was never out of the game. Sleep didn't come easy. My mind had looped that dinner scene all night, replaying the smug smiles, the calculated silence. When the morning sun slipped through my condo blinds, it didn't feel like a new day. It felt like a warning shot. Still in pajamas, I shuffled into the kitchen and started my usual ritual. Grind the beans, fill the kettle, pretend I wasn't unraveling inside. Then, ding! A real estate alert lit up my phone. I frowned. I'd set that watch years ago for anything linked to the estate's address. I almost didn't click, but I did. The screen loaded slowly. When the file opened, I nearly dropped my mug. Sabrina and Martin had filed paperwork using the estate as collateral for a personal loan, $500,000. Their names were listed under intended transferees. Intended, as in, not yet actual owners. But they were already betting the house. Heart pounding, I yanked open my laptop and pulled up the Fayette County Property Database. There it was, a pending lien application, filed last Thursday, 3 days before the dinner. This wasn't spontaneous, it was orchestrated. My name? Absent. Not even a footnote. I sank into the chair, breathing shallowly. Did they think I'd never check? That I was too naive? Too docile? I opened my file cabinet, pulling out a worn folder marked Emery Trust. My grandfather's handwriting still sat bold across the front. He had set up a private trust when I turned 25. Not flashy, but powerful, quiet and binding. I'd been using it for years to cover estate repairs, taxes, insurance, all behind the scenes, all to keep the house intact. I'd never bragged, never held it over anyone. I did it because I believed in preserving something that mattered. And now they were trying to mortgage the very bones of it, for kitchen upgrades and God knows what else. I whispered, "Unbelievable." I wasn't angry. I was past angry. This wasn't about property. It was about being erased. I printed every document, highlighted every lie. Then I called Walter Jenkins. He picked up on the second ring, voice rough like he hadn't had coffee yet. "It's Davina," I said. "They've made their move." He didn't even ask who they were. There was a pause. Then he muttered, "It's time we talk." I hung up, then pulled an old photo off the wall. Me and Emery beneath the oak tree he planted in 1962. My hand lingered on the frame. "You trusted me with this," I whispered. "I won't let them bury what you built." By the time I met Walter at the cafe, the midday heat had lifted, replaced by a chill that crept in through the windows. We chose a corner table, away from curious ears. He opened the trust file without small talk, scanning page after page with tired eyes. When I explained about the mortgage lien, he didn't flinch, just tapped the paper with his pen. Premature, illegal, unless they're banking on no one challenging them. I stirred my coffee, letting the silence stretch. They are. Back home, I couldn't sit still. I pulled out my laptop and started combing through years of documents, PDFs, emails, cloud folders tied to the estate. That's when I found it. Buried in a 2018 archive, a chain titled Estate Planning, Internal Only. I clicked it open. It was a conversation between my parents, Sabrina, and a real estate attorney. At first, it was routine, zoning questions, probate concerns. Then a line from Sabrina made my fingers go cold. Davina's priorities don't align with long-term family legacy. We should consider excluding her from future revisions for simplicity. There it was, cold, efficient, clean. No room for discussion, no questioning my intentions, just a quiet removal, years before any papers were drawn up. I sat back, numb. All this time, I thought I was just busy. Too many work trips, missed calls. I chalked it up to life. But it wasn't random. I remembered the vacations they didn't tell me about, the sudden change in tone when legal matters came up, the moments I brushed off because who wants to believe their own family is phasing them out? Now I had it. In writing. I printed the email, hands steady despite the tremor in my chest. This wasn't oversight. It was strategy. In that moment, the weight of it all settled in. They didn't forget me. They removed me. With intent, with time, with coordination. But not anymore. I placed the email in the same folder as the trust papers. Then I added something else, a copy of last year's bank statement showing every dollar I'd quietly paid toward estate taxes. Let them try to ignore that. They didn't just forget me, I said to the empty room. They erased me, and now they're going to remember. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sabrina's smug grin and my mother's quiet gaze from a dozen moments that suddenly felt full of meaning. By sunrise, the decision was made. I drove across town, past the park where I used to walk with Emery, gripping the wheel like it might break. This wasn't about confrontation. I wanted clarity, one thread of decency to hold on to. I picked up a bouquet of white tulips from a street vendor. Mom always said they reminded her of peace. Maybe she'd see it as an olive branch. She opened the door herself, still in her robe, eyes surprised but not unkind. "Davina," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." The sunroom was warm, bathed in soft light. She poured tea. I handed her the flowers and tried not to look desperate. "I just want to talk," I said, sitting across from her, "about the house, about everything." I laid it out, calmly at first. The mortgage filing, the old email, my payments, the trust. Her eyes didn't widen, her hands didn't tremble. She just stared into her teacup. Then I asked, "Mom, did you know? Did you know what they were planning?" She took a long breath and looked up at me. "Your sister is starting a family," she said. "She needs this more than you do." A crack split open inside me. Not denial, not shock, just justification. "It's not about needing, Mom. It's about lying," she sighed. "You've always been so sensitive. This wasn't meant to hurt you." I swallowed the ache. "Then why does it feel like I was written out of my own family?" Her voice softened, but not enough. "We had to simplify things. You were always so busy." Sabrina stepped up. No apology, no admission, just a quiet verdict. I didn't count. I stood, not fast, not loud, just final. "I'm not here for permission. I'm not here to beg," I said. "If this keeps going, I'll bring everything to light. The trust, the payments, the documents, all of it." She blinked. Her lip trembled, but she said nothing. I moved toward the door. On the hallway wall, our family photos lined the trim, smiling faces, grandkids, beach trips. But mine was missing. A deliberate space, a quiet erasure. I paused, hand on the doorknob. "You taught me to protect what's mine," I whispered, "even if that means protecting it from you." The silence stretched for 3 days, not even a check-in from Eleanor. Then, just after lunch on Friday, a message lit up my phone. From Dad. "We need to talk about formalities. Come by tomorrow evening." Formalities. That was Dad's favorite way of softening ugly truths. I already knew what this was, a push to make it official, but I was done playing defense. The next evening, I walked into the study where I used to do my homework as a kid. Now, it smelled like lemon polish and betrayal. Gordon sat behind his desk like a CEO. Across from him, Sabrina and Martin perched on the edge of the couch, smug and comfortable. A thick manila envelope lay waiting. "It's just a formality," Dad said, sliding it toward me. "A simple waiver. You've always had your career. Your sister's building a family now. This will make everything smoother for the future." I opened it. A quitclaim deed. Signing it meant giving up any past, present, or future legal right to the estate. "Is this a joke?" I asked. "No one's trying to hurt you," Eleanor added from the doorway. "We're just being practical." My gaze swept the room. 4 people pretending this was fairness. Sabrina wouldn't even meet my eyes. "You're not asking me to sign a paper?" I said, voice low but sharp. "You're asking me to vanish." Martin chuckled. "Oh, come on. Don't make this bigger than it is." I put the pen down. "No." Gordon leaned forward. "Davina, I've paid property taxes on this house for nearly a decade, out of my own pocket, from a trust you didn't even know existed. And now you want me to walk away so Sabrina can slap her name on a deed she didn't earn?" Sabrina scoffed. "You were never around." I cut her off. "And yet I was the only one keeping the lights on." I looked at Dad. You spent years pretending I didn't care, but you were never paying attention. Martin muttered under his breath. Jesus, she's dramatic. I stopped at the door, turned slowly, and met his eyes. Keep pushing, I said, and I'll show you what dramatic really looks like. 2 days later, I parked in front of the estate with no announcement, no agenda, just a need to collect the last of my things. No one was supposed to be home. The plan was to be invisible. I entered through the side door, letting the scent of lemon oil and aged wood guide me down the hall. My feet led me instinctively to Granddad's old study. The room had been quiet since his funeral, still as a photograph. I bent to grab a small stack of books I'd left in the corner, but something poking out from beneath a side table caught my eye. Blueprints, rolled tight, bound in a rubber band. I pulled them free, expecting maybe renovations for the kitchen or roof. But what I saw knocked the breath from my chest. Plans to gut the eastern wing, where Emery's library stood. His sanctuary, the shelves he carved by hand, the stained glass skylight he designed for moonlight reading. Gone. To make way for a gym and a media lounge, scrawled in Sharpie on the margins. I sank into his old armchair, the blueprints shaking in my lap. They weren't just stealing the estate. They were erasing its soul. I called Walter. They're planning demolition, I said. The library, Emery's library. There was a pause on the line, then his voice, low and deliberate. If they file for demolition, it triggers a legal review. The trust will red flag the title. Finally, a line in the sand. I hung up, already opening my laptop. First, I emailed the local historical society, attaching photos of the library's craftsmanship. Then I messaged Rachel Feldman, an old friend from college, now a reporter for the Herald. Let them try to build their fantasy house on bones. I gathered the trust documents, stacked them with the demolition plans, and slipped them into my bag. As I stepped outside, the sun dipped low over the trees. Martin was coming up the driveway, dressed like he owned the place. He looked startled. Didn't expect you here today, I smiled. I know, that's the fun part. By Saturday afternoon, the estate had been staged like a showroom. Hors d'oeuvres circled on trays, soft jazz played from corner speakers, and local donors mingled with board members of the Preservation Society. At the center of it all stood Martin, beaming like he was hosting a charity gala, not a hostile takeover. I stayed near the back, arms crossed, watching him flash his polished grin and say, "We're reimagining Oak Ridge, making it fit the times." He went on about open floor plans, decluttering the past, and legacy stewardship. He even called himself the estate manager. That was the final straw. I stepped forward, slow and certain. "You're not the manager. You don't hold any legal authority here." The room hushed. Martin laughed awkwardly. "Davina, let's not—" "No," I cut in. "Let's." I pulled a folder from my tote and held it up. "These are trust documents. Your name isn't anywhere on them. You have no deed, no legal appointment. You're not managing anything. You're playing pretend." Gasps broke around us like shattered glass. Sabrina went pale. My father stiffened. Martin tried to speak again, but his voice cracked. The meeting fell apart within minutes. Donors left quietly. The society's representative promised to review everything. I stepped outside for air, heart pounding, when I heard the door open behind me. It was Eleanor. Her face was tight, eyes unreadable. "You went too far," she said. "This could have stayed in the family." I turned slowly, my voice low. "You already chose which part of the family mattered." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Found this in your desk, sealed, unopened." She froze. I unfolded the letter, my fingers trembling. Emery's handwriting, bold and unmistakable. "If you're reading this, Davina," it began, "they've tried to rewrite what we built, protect Oak Ridge. You were always the one who understood." I looked at her. "You kept this from me." She didn't deny it. "Because I knew once it started, it would never stop. You'd burn every bridge." "No," I said. "You burned them when you decided silence was safer than standing up for what was right." Sabrina stepped out then, already on the defense. "You're twisting things." "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm revealing them." And I walked away, Emery's letter in one hand, the truth in the other. 2 days after the explosion at the estate gathering, I arranged a formal meeting at Walter Jenkins' office. Neutral ground, hardwood floors, dusty bookshelves, a fireplace nobody ever lit. They arrived together, Gordon, Eleanor, Sabrina, Martin, seated across from me like it was a business negotiation. They still thought I was bluffing. Walter adjusted his glasses, glanced at me, then opened the leather-bound file I handed him. "This," he said, voice steady, "is the Harrington Legacy Trust, executed and witnessed by Emery himself." He flipped a page. "Davina Harrington is the sole trustee and beneficiary of the estate known as Oak Ridge. All decisions regarding its preservation, use, or transfer rest solely with her." The room went silent. Walter's voice cut through it again. "Any attempt to mortgage, demolish, or reallocate ownership, without her explicit consent, is void." Gordon's jaw clenched. Sabrina's mouth dropped open. Martin leaned forward like he could talk his way around it. Then came the second blow. "I must also disclose," Walter said slowly, "that shortly after Emery's passing, Gordon asked me to keep this trust document quiet. He didn't want it filed, said he needed time to restructure the family's path forward." Eleanor gasped. "You said you were protecting us." "I was protecting your plan," Walter corrected, "not the law, and certainly not Emery's wishes." Sabrina turned to Gordon, eyes sharp. "You told me she was out, that there was nothing left to fight for." Martin stood up. "This changes nothing. It changes everything," I said, rising to my feet. "You've all treated me like a placeholder, a burden, but I've been the one holding this place up for years." I laid out my terms, voice even. "No demolition, no remodel. You're out of this house permanently. I'm applying for historical status. Oak Ridge will be protected, legally and publicly." Gordon tried to speak again. Walter cut him off. "You've lost all authority here. The trust stands." Sabrina stormed out, muttering obscenities under her breath. Martin followed, throwing one last glare my way. Eleanor didn't move. Her eyes were glassy, mouth closed. But still, she said nothing. I crossed the room and placed Emery's letter on the fireplace mantel, right beneath his portrait. He trusted me, and I kept that promise. The next morning, I woke to the hush of Oak Ridge. No footsteps upstairs, no whispers in the hallway, just the soft creak of wood settling, the sound of the house breathing again. For the first time, I felt it was breathing with me. The sun spilled through the library skylight, catching dust motes in golden streams. I sat beneath it, coffee warming my hands, Emery's letter resting beside me on the old armchair. He built this place with patience and vision. I had fought to keep it with truth. It hadn't been about revenge, not really. It was about memory, honor, lineage. Word of what happened had already begun to spread. Gordon had quietly stepped down from his position on the legal board, citing personal matters. His silence in the papers spoke louder than any denial. Sabrina and Martin sold their condo in the city and moved out of state. No farewell, no explanation. But people whispered. They always do. I never corrected the stories. I didn't need to. Eleanor sent me a handwritten note, short, slanted, heavy with unsaid things. "You were right. I just wasn't strong enough to stand beside you." There was no apology. But there was recognition. And for now, that would do. Oak Ridge was declared a historical landmark 3 weeks later. I hosted an open house with the local history society. The town showed up. So did Walter. So did old neighbors who remembered Emery's gardening lectures or his annual 4th of July stories. One woman told me, "He'd be proud of what you've done." That night, I stood alone outside beneath the oak tree, the same one Emery planted the day my mother was born. I looked up through the branches, felt the weight of what had been saved, not just wood and walls, but truth. I wasn't healed, not completely, but I wasn't invisible anymore. Back inside, I closed the library doors, the letter still on the mantel beside Emery's photo. I whispered to both. Some people inherit legacy, others protect it. I was never meant to inherit Oak Ridge. I was meant to fight for it. Sometimes the people you love most will ask you to shrink yourself, quiet your voice, doubt your worth, for the sake of keeping peace. But silence isn't peace, and loyalty shouldn't come at the cost of your dignity. What I learned from this fight wasn't just about legal rights or family property. It was about remembering who I am, without their permission. Legacy isn't just what's handed down to you. Sometimes it's what you refuse to let go of. And maybe, just maybe, the fiercest kind of love is the kind that protects what others are too afraid to. So let me ask you, have you ever had to stand your ground when everyone expected you to stay quiet? Have you ever protected something, an idea, a place, a part of yourself, because no one else would? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from, or just type 1 if this story resonated with you in any way. And hey, if it didn't, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'm here to listen, not just speak. If this video moved you, inspired you, or even made you think a little deeper, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Your support helps us keep telling real human stories that matter. Thank you for being here. Hi there, I'm Lacey. It was my birthday, my 38th, and my sister handed me a gift bag that said, "Try harder next year." People laughed. Then she announced her pregnancy at my party. That was the moment I got up and left. But the truth? That wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time I walked out loud. They used guilt to keep me quiet. They humiliated me with a smile. They even went through my daughter to get under my skin. Why does the family that says they love you hurt you the most? They had the nerve to hang a banner with my name in LED lights, like I was the guest of honor. Like they hadn't just set me up to be humiliated in front of every cousin, uncle, and neighbor within a 100-mile radius. Balloons in shades of blush and ivory swayed in the breeze. The cupcakes looked like they'd been arranged by a wedding planner. Everything was perfect, except the part where I was supposed to feel celebrated. Travis stood beside me, hand on the small of my back. Junie skipped ahead, clutching her homemade card in both hands like it was sacred. Her glitter shoes sparkled under the late afternoon sun. Jody greeted us with that overly bright grin she uses when she's about to pull something. "There she is, birthday girl," she trilled, voice a little too loud. Our mom hovered behind her, already sipping wine and avoiding my eyes. I knew something was off the moment Jody grabbed the microphone. "Let's give my baby sister the gift she deserves," she beamed, dragging out every syllable. A plain white paper bag was handed to me. No ribbon, no wrapping, just a yellow sticky note slapped on crooked. "Try harder next year." The laughter started immediately, some awkward chuckles, a few gasps, but Jody laughed first. Too loud, too long. Inside the bag? A broken lip balm, half-used mints in a crumpled hotel wrapper, and a receipt to a dollar store. No card, no note, no effort. I didn't say a word, just looked at Junie, whose smile had faltered. She held up her glittery card to me like it might undo what had just happened. Before I could even process what the hell was going on, Jody grabbed the mic again. "Oh, before I forget, we're having a baby, number 3. She clutched her stomach dramatically. "Surprise!" The cheers were instant. Mom rushed to hug her. Someone popped a confetti cannon. One of Jody's boys ran to the LED sign and flipped it. It now read, "Auntie again." That's when I knew. This party was never for me. I turned to Junie. "You ready for real cake?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide and silent. Travis was already reaching for the car keys. We left our plates untouched, walked out the side gate without a word. No one stopped us. No one called after us. The music swelled behind us, upbeat and artificial, but something cracked open inside me. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the sun had dipped behind the trees, leaving streaks of burnt orange fading into gray. Junie unbuckled herself in silence, still hugging that glittery card like it might undo the humiliation neither of us could voice yet. She walked ahead, letting the screen door creak shut behind her. Inside, the quiet was louder than the party music we'd left behind. Travis placed the card I'd made for my mother on the kitchen counter, wrapped in soft floral paper, tied with lavender ribbon. I'd spent hours crafting it. Photos of us through the years, a handwritten note about the time she nursed me through mono. A memory book. She never opened it. "She won't even look at it," I said softly, my eyes stuck on that untouched ribbon. Travis didn't answer. He just pulled me in, held me like he knew saying anything would cheapen it. Earlier that day, while Junie was busy drawing stars on her birthday cards for her cousins, I had carefully taped down the last photo in that journal. I wanted it to be something Mom would actually keep, something she'd reread when she missed me. I even wrote, "You raised me stronger than you think." Turns out, she didn't want strength. She wanted a replica of Jody. At the party, when I handed her the gift, she blinked twice and said, "Oh, I'll open it later." Her voice was thin, distant. Mom barely finished her sentence before Jody swooped in with a perfectly wrapped electronics box. "Something useful, not sentimental," she laughed. Mom's face lit up like someone flipped a switch. "Oh my God, is this the new health tracker? Jojo, how do you always know exactly what I need?" Everyone clapped. I was still holding the shredded wrapping from my gift. Now, standing in my kitchen, I opened the drawer beside the fridge and slid the unopened card inside, behind old coupons and expired batteries. Maybe I'd mail it to myself someday. Travis handed me a glass of wine and said nothing. That's what I loved about him. He never filled silence just to feel useful. I took a sip, let the burn settle. "She sees Jody as the daughter she wished she had," I whispered. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Maybe it's time you stop trying to become what she wants and start being who Junie already sees." That hit harder than anything at the party. My lips trembled. I took another sip. "I think I'm done pretending this family works." We heard small footsteps padding down the hallway. Junie appeared, holding the birthday card she'd made for me, pink crayon hearts and stick figures. She looked up. "Mom, do you think Aunt Jody meant it, that you should try harder next year?" I bent down to her level. "No, sweetheart. Some people forget how to be kind." She nodded slowly, then offered her card like a peace offering. "I think yours was the prettiest one." I kissed her forehead. That's because it came from someone who actually meant it. After Junie went to bed, I curled up on the couch with a blanket I wasn't cold enough to need. Travis kissed my forehead, whispered he'd be upstairs, and left me in the kind of silence that hums when your brain won't stop. I picked up my phone, not because I wanted to scroll, just to distract my hands. Muscle memory opened Instagram. That's when I saw it. My cousin Molly had posted a slideshow. White and gold decorations, long banquet tables under string lights, a 3-tier cake shaped like intertwined rings. Her caption? 50 years of love, couldn't imagine better parents. Cheers to the best night ever. I stared. My chest tightened. I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even known it happened. They threw a 50th anniversary party for my parents. Big, flashy, catered. And I wasn't even told. Not a text. Not a lie to cover it. Just nothing. My thumb hovered over the comment section. Should I pretend I didn't see it? Should I like the post to keep the peace? My heart beat against my ribs like it wanted out. I opened my messages, typed, "Me. I didn't know about the anniversary party." Read. No reply. 20 minutes later, "Mom. We didn't think you'd want to come. You've been distant." Distant? After they watched my sister mock me in front of my child and said nothing? I had been quiet, not distant. There's a difference. I set the phone down and let my head fall back. The ceiling spun a little. I closed my eyes, and like it always does, memory came rushing in. I was 10. I'd gotten the lead in our school play. Weeks of rehearsal. I made my own poster, colored every star. Opening night came, and I scanned every row, holding my breath. Empty seats where my parents were supposed to be. Afterward, Mom said, "Jody had volleyball tryouts. You understand, right?" And I did. Or I said I did. I always did. Because being the easy one was the only way I knew to get any scraps of attention. Back in the present, I opened the bottom drawer of the side table. Inside was a folder labeled Family. I hadn't touched it in a while, but it was there. Screenshots, emails, a birthday message from 2 years ago that just read, "Happy birthday." No punctuation, no name. A printed message where Mom called Jody our rock, our pride. The same year she told me, "You're hard to read." I flipped through the pages. One by one, they whispered the same thing. You've never been chosen. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even as a daughter worth remembering. By the time Saturday morning arrived, I had almost convinced myself the past week hadn't chipped at me as badly as it did. Then my phone rang. "Mom, Jody's babysitter canceled last minute," she began without greeting. "Can you pick up the boys from soccer and keep them a few hours?" I blinked. "Why can't you?" "My back's flaring again, and you're the most dependable." That word, dependable, Landed like a backhanded compliment. I agreed, like always. And I hated that about myself. 2 hours later, I was pulling up to my parents' house with Jody's boys in the back seat, talking about juice boxes and video games like nothing was off, like their mom hadn't turned my birthday into a punchline 7 days earlier. At the barbecue, no one thanked me for picking them up. Not Jody, not Mom. The boys ran off, and I was left holding a half-empty sports bottle and a wrinkled jacket like the help who showed up early. The lawn buzzed with conversation. Folding tables groaned with potato salad and ribs. Uncle Rick called out across the yard, "Still doing that online gig, Lacey?" Before I could respond, Jody chimed in. "She edits company emails, internal stuff. It's cute." Mom laughed. "Well, at least it keeps her busy." My face flushed. I stared at my plate, untouched. Last week, I presented a full pitch deck to the board and secured an extra $15,000 in departmental funding. But sure, let's talk about how I'm kept busy. I glanced at Travis, who sat beside me chewing slower than usual. He didn't say anything, but his jaw was tight. He always knew when I was clenching words between my teeth. Inside my head, something whispered, "One more time. If they do this one more time." After dessert, Jody passed by me with her third glass of wine and muttered, "You always take things so seriously. It's just family. Don't be so sensitive." That line again, that lazy dismissal. I gave a polite nod and started gathering empty plates. Travis leaned in, voice low. "You good?" I smiled too wide. "Peachy." But in my chest, the line had already been drawn. 3 days after the barbecue, I was brushing Junie's hair after her bath, mentally ticking through my work emails and wondering if I had enough energy to care about dinner. Travis was downstairs loading the dishwasher. The house smelled faintly of lemon soap and the lavender lotion Junie insisted on. Just as I leaned down to kiss her cheek goodnight, my phone buzzed on the dresser. Mom lit up the screen. Without thinking, I answered. She was already crying. "You've made everything so tense lately," she sniffed. "Jody's trying so hard, and you're making her feel unwanted." I blinked, stunned. "I didn't even say anything at that barbecue." "Exactly," she said, voice rising. "You just sat there. All that sulking made it awkward for everyone. She was trying to lighten the mood. You used to laugh with us." I took a deep breath, held it, then said, flatly, before I realized I was the punchline. She sniffled louder. "You don't know how much this hurts me." I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door gently behind me. "You're crying because I didn't fake laugh when your favorite daughter mocked my career in front of a table full of people?" There was silence. "You want me to comfort you because you let her humiliate me, and I didn't perform happiness on cue?" Still no answer. I kept going, my voice low but clear. "You can't keep calling it keeping the peace when you only protect the loudest person in the room." She finally muttered, "You used to be easier." "No," I said, sharper now. "I used to be smaller. I used to shrink myself to fit inside whatever quiet corner made you most comfortable." Her breath hitched on the other end, but I didn't wait. I hung up. Downstairs, Travis looked up from the sink when he heard the click of my phone hitting the kitchen counter. "You all right?" he asked, wiping his hands. "Not yet," I said, pouring a glass of water, but I finally said it. He stepped closer, gave me a quiet nod. "That voice has waited a long time." I took a sip and let the silence settle. The weekend crept in quiet, like the calm before a storm you know is coming but can't quite name. By Saturday morning, the air felt too still. That's when the doorbell rang. A pink box sat on the front porch. Junie squealed, "It has stickers! It's from Aunt Jody!" I didn't even have to see the handwriting to know. She pulled the lid off with hopeful hands. Inside, a stuffed elephant missing one eye, broken crayons, a paperback with a torn cover, and a bent index card that read, "Thought of you, Aunt Jody." Junie's face changed instantly. "Did I do something bad?" I knelt beside her. "No, baby, you didn't." She blinked at me, lip trembling. I stood up, gathered the items, and walked straight to the kitchen trash bin. Junie didn't say anything, just followed me with wide, confused eyes. That night, after tucking her in and kissing her forehead twice, I checked my phone. Missed call. No voicemail icon. But when I opened my inbox, I saw the transcript. Jody's voice, snide and slow. You think you're protecting her? You're just making her soft. She'll pick her side eventually. Let's see if she picks the dramatic mom or the family that actually shows up. I didn't feel the usual burn, just a cold kind of clarity. Travis read over my shoulder. She actually said that? I nodded, already moving toward the office. Laptop open, fingers steady. Subject, formal no contact request. Juniper Tanner. I CC'd the school principal, attached the voicemail file, added a note. We are requesting no further unsupervised contact with this individual. Travis leaned in the doorway. You're serious. No more polite fences, I said. No more letting them choose what hurts gets ignored. He crossed his arms. You're doing the right thing. It doesn't feel brave, I admitted. It feels overdue, he shrugged. Sometimes those are the same thing. 5 days passed. I thought the cease and desist, the school email, the attached voicemail, surely that would be the line in the sand. But people like Jody don't retreat. They regroup. Wednesday afternoon, I pulled into the school pickup line, window cracked for fresh air. Junie climbed into the back seat, hugging her backpack, then held out a pastel pink envelope with shaky hands. Miss Lauren gave this to me. She said Auntie Jody dropped it off and asked her to pass it along. I froze. My fingers closed around the envelope and I opened it right there in the front seat. If you ever feel sad or confused, Auntie Jody loves you. Even if your mom says no, you can always call me. Junie bit her lip. Did I make someone mad? No, sweetheart, I said, voice even. You didn't do anything wrong. But my hands were trembling so hard the note nearly tore. That night I skipped dinner. Went straight to my laptop, filed a second notice, this time a formal cease and desist with a copy sent to our family attorney and the school district superintendent. This isn't family anymore, I told Travis. This is sabotage. She used someone else's name to bypass a legal order, he added, pacing the kitchen. She's crossing boundaries on purpose now, I nodded, and I'm done sending warnings. 2 days later, Dad's name flashed across my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. Heard about your letter to the school. Overreacting doesn't help anyone. Later that night, Jody posted a selfie online. New SUV, bow still on the hood. Caption, Thanks, Dad, you always believed in me. I stared at the screen for a beat too long, then turned it off. No tears this time, just a soft, unfamiliar sense of certainty. I scrolled back to the message from Dad, hovered over the reply field, then hit delete. They're not losing me, I whispered to myself. I'm releasing them. Dinner was simmering on the stove, rosemary chicken, Junie's favorite, when my phone buzzed on the counter. Group text from Mom. I wiped my hands, unlocked the screen, and froze. There it was. Don't expect much from Lacey. She's always been overly sensitive. Just let her have this tantrum. Attached beneath the message was a picture of Junie, at school, on the playground, laughing. Someone had snapped it, probably Jody, and my mother had shared it casually, like Junie was part of a conversation I hadn't been invited into. Travis walked in just as I put the phone down. She didn't mean to send that to you, huh? He asked, reading my face. No, but she meant every word. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw anything. Instead, I walked to my desk, pulled out a folder titled Family, and opened my laptop. Every voicemail, every screenshot, every message that made my stomach twist over the years. I compiled them into a single PDF. No edits, no commentary. Subject, in case you're wondering why we stopped showing up. I attached the file, BCC'd every adult in our family tree, clicked send. By the time the chicken hit the table, replies had already begun to roll in. I had no idea. We always thought something was off. You did the right thing? My aunt unfollowed Jody publicly. A cousin shared the email in another family group chat. Someone screenshotted Jody's SUV post and wrote, "So this is what loyalty looks like?" I didn't reply to any of them, just watched the dust swirl. Then I went to my messages. Blocked Mom, blocked Jody. That silence? It wasn't an absence. It was a boundary, not an escape, a strategy. For once, I wasn't biting my tongue. I was letting the truth speak louder than any microphone they'd ever grabbed first. 2 weeks passed, the silence stayed, no apology, no explanation, just absence. Then, a thin envelope slid through our mailbox, my mother's handwriting on the front. Inside was a mass-produced sympathy card, printed cursive. "We miss our family, hope to reconnect someday." I flipped it over, blank, no note, no name. I grabbed a sticky note, scribbled 4 words. "So did I, once." I stuck it to the front and mailed it back. No return address, just space. Meanwhile, Jody vanished from social media. Her page is gone. Photos deleted. The SUV post erased like it never existed. I didn't rejoice. I didn't gloat. I just made pancakes. Junie, now freer in ways too quiet to measure, laughed more these days. She started drawing galaxies, whole constellations taped across her bedroom ceiling. "They don't buzz in my chest anymore," she told me one night as I tucked her in. Buzz? You know, that feeling when people act nice, but it's really sharp underneath. I kissed her cheek. That feeling has a name, and you're allowed to leave it behind. One Saturday morning, I got an email from a parent at her school. "Hey, Lacey, would Junie like to come to Ava's birthday party? She and my daughter talk about stars all day." I smiled, replied yes. Normal. It felt normal. At family day at school, Junie chose me. Each kid painted a picture of what family means. Hers? A swirl of soft pinks and blues, a small figure holding an umbrella under a sky of stars. In the corner, her caption read, "Safe is better than big." I didn't cry in front of her. I just squeezed her hand. That night, I opened my laptop to check work email. One unread message, no subject line. It was from Jody. "Are you happy now? You won?" I hovered over it, then clicked delete. No reply, no need. Because I didn't win, I walked away. And finally, I never looked back. Some people inherit furniture, some people inherit silence. I turned mine into a boundary. And finally, peace had room to breathe. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And silence? It's not always surrender. It can be the strongest boundary you'll ever set. For years, I tried to earn love by shrinking myself. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. I laughed at jokes that stung, showed up to events where I was invisible, and called it family. But here's what I know now. Being loyal to people who hurt you isn't love. It's self-abandonment. I don't tell this story because I want sympathy. I tell it because maybe someone watching has been biting their tongue too long. Maybe you've mistaken survival for harmony. If that's you, it's not too late to stop. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially when it's costing you your self-worth. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to protect you? What gave you the strength to finally say enough? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Even just drop A if this resonated with you, or type 1 if you've ever felt invisible around your own family. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know which city or state you're in. It helps this small community feel a little closer. And if this video touched something in you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are more stories coming, real, raw, and sometimes messy, but always with one goal, to remind you that your voice matters, your story is valid, and healing is possible. Thanks for being here. I see you. Hi there, I'm Jolene. At my sister's birthday, they sat me in the hallway, next to a coat rack. No name card at the main table, no photo, no voice in the room. I thought it was just a mistake. But then I saw Rachel in my seat, smiling like she belonged. And the others? They looked the other way. That night didn't just expose a seating chart. It exposed years of betrayal, money stolen behind my back, a letter my mother wrote before she died, hidden from me until it was almost too late. How did it get that far? And why did no one stop her? The first thing I noticed was the fountain. It sprayed upward in a glittering arc outside the entrance, catching the golden Arizona sunlight in a way that felt too perfect, like something you'd see in a luxury hotel ad. Not a place you show up to feeling like a question mark in your own family. I stepped out of my car, adjusting the neckline of my dress. Navy blue, modest but fitted, clean makeup, nude heels, polished enough to say I belonged, not flashy enough to steal attention. I'd practiced this. I was here to keep the peace, to wish Marjorie a happy birthday, to play my role. That's what I always did. Or used to do. Walking into the venue, the air-conditioned lobby hit me like a wall, crisp, scented with something floral and expensive. I saw the check-in table right away. A young woman in a peach blouse smiled brightly, almost too brightly, and chirped, "Hi there, name?" "Jolene Hart," I said, keeping my tone light. She paused, flipping the seating chart clipboard, her eyes scanning. Then that split-second hesitation. Her smile flickered. She pulled a place card from the stack and held it out, her voice dipping slightly. "You're at table 19. I glanced down. It said table 19 in a soft gold script. No fancy ink, no embellishment, just my name and that number. I looked behind her, toward the main ballroom. The double doors were open, revealing round tables, glowing centerpieces, flickering votives. My eyes darted, searching for table 19. She followed my gaze and hesitated again before gesturing, not toward the ballroom, but to the side hallway. "It's just out there, by the coat room." "Excuse me?" I asked, forcing a small laugh. "Is this a mistake?" She blinked, apologetic but firm. "That's your assigned seat." I stared at her for a beat, then down at the card. My hands suddenly felt clammy. I thanked her because I was still on autopilot, and turned toward the hallway. It smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and dust. A long rectangular table was tucked against the wall, a few chairs pushed in haphazardly. No linen, no centerpiece, no lighting. Just forgotten. I stood there blinking. It wasn't just exclusion, it was placement. This wasn't just about seating, it was a statement. A message wrapped in passive aggression. You don't matter enough to sit with us. Trying not to show how badly it stung, I straightened up and made my way toward the ballroom entrance, scanning the room. That's when I saw her. Marjorie, my sister, the birthday girl. She stood in a champagne-toned gown that probably cost more than my monthly rent, laughing with a group near the cake table. Her curls bounced as she tilted her head and smiled, always perfectly poised. And sitting right next to her? Rachel. I stopped mid-step. Rachel. The same woman who had cried to me 3 years ago about needing money to keep her apartment. The same woman I had loaned $2,000 to, who ghosted me after. And now she was sipping wine, nestled into the seat I had expected to take. It was all too coordinated. I walked slowly past them, trying not to draw attention, but Rachel spotted me and did a double take. Then she grinned. "Oh my God, Jolene, it's been ages," she said too loudly. I gave her a tight smile. "Yeah, it really has." Marjorie turned. Her eyes swept over me, then to my name card in hand. Her smile was serene, lips slightly parted like she was about to say something kind. But then came the smirk. Barely there, but I saw it. "Did they put you in the hallway?" she asked, voice dripping with innocent surprise. "That's odd. I'm sure it wasn't intentional." Intentional. The word landed in my chest like a hammer. I glanced around. My father was pouring himself a whiskey at the bar. My aunt and cousin were seated comfortably, laughing, not a care in the world. Every seat was filled, with people I grew up with, people I thought I meant something to. None of them looked surprised I wasn't seated with them. Marjorie leaned in a little closer, lowered her voice just enough. "It's just a dinner. Don't be dramatic." I froze. That phrase, "don't be dramatic," was the Hart family motto when anyone dared call out mistreatment. When someone finally cracked under the weight of years of silence. I met her gaze head on. She blinked first. And that's when I knew. She didn't expect me to come. Or worse, she did. And this was her way of making sure I knew exactly where I stood. Still, I tried to smile. "Of course, just a dinner." She turned back to her circle, already dismissing me. I took a step back, then another. The hallway wasn't far. Neither was the exit. I walked past the photo booth, past the cake table, past the glossy laughter and the smell of over-buttered appetizers. I reached the hallway again, staring at the folding chair by the coat rack. For a second, I thought about sitting down, about taking the card, plastering on a grin, and pretending I didn't care. But then I realized I wasn't walking away from the dinner. I was walking away from pretending I still belonged. So I did. The hallway was quiet, too quiet for a celebration that loud. I stood there a moment longer, as if waiting for someone to realize the mistake. But no one came, so I left, only I didn't head home. Not yet. Instead, I circled the back garden, letting the soft glow from the patio lights follow me around the edge of the venue. The champagne buzz of laughter floated from the open doors. I found a shaded bench and sat, letting the stone beneath me ground my racing thoughts. 38 minutes, maybe 40, had passed since I arrived, and already I felt erased. A few deep breaths later, I decided I'd give it one more try. Not for them, but for me. I wasn't going to beg for a seat, but I wanted to see if anyone even noticed I was missing. I slipped back inside. The photographer had arrived. His camera strap swung as he directed everyone toward the open floor near the fireplace, where the light hit just right. I lingered near the edge of the crowd, not sure if I should approach. Then I heard someone say, "All right, let's get a big family shot," and my chest tightened. I stepped closer, expecting someone, anyone, to wave me over. They didn't. I made eye contact with my Aunt Patricia, who immediately turned to whisper something to her husband. A cousin, Nate, I think, saw me and offered a stiff shrug, mouthing something like, "They're just doing core family first. Maybe for the slideshow." Slideshow. The same one Marjorie had been planning for weeks, the one she'd asked everyone to send photos for. I had emailed her 6. She hadn't replied. I took another step back, quietly. The camera flashed. Marjorie stood front and center, arms looped around Rachel and Travis. My seat thief and my sister's boyfriend side by side, both grinning like they'd won something. And I wasn't even a footnote. I walked toward the nearest restroom to hide, even just for a few minutes. The lights inside were too bright, too sterile. I closed myself into a stall and finally pulled out my phone, just to distract my thoughts. Big mistake. The notifications were piling up. Likes, tags, messages. I opened Instagram, and there it was. Marjorie's latest post. "Grateful for every soul that made tonight magical # blessed # family first." The photo? The group shot. My family. My blood. Laughing, glowing, polished to perfection. Except, I wasn't in it. I scrolled back, zooming in. I remembered standing near the corner when the picture was taken. I was in the frame, but she'd cropped it, and she hadn't tagged me, not even a mention in the caption. One comment said, "You two are literal sisters' goals." Another, "That smile says everything. You're surrounded by real love." I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. Real love? No. This was curated loyalty. A story where I didn't exist, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd done it intentionally. Suddenly, I was 12 again, at Grandpa's birthday. My cousins sat lined up for the family picture, and I'd arrived late from dance rehearsal. I remember running toward the group, still in my leotard, my hair frizzy with sweat. I stood at the edge of the frame, and later when the photo was printed, someone had used scissors to trim the border, cutting me out. My mother claimed it was to fit the frame. I believed her. Back then, I always did. Even as a child, I learned how to be invisible. That memory cracked open something deeper. A pattern I hadn't wanted to admit. I'd been erased before, not just from photos but from holidays, from phone calls, from memories people chose not to keep. This post wasn't just a picture. It was the digital version of that scissor. Sharp, deliberate, final. I stepped out of the stall and leaned over the sink, splashing cold water on my face. My reflection stared back, makeup still intact, eyes a little too bright. I dried my hands slowly, folded the towel, and dropped it in the bin. The party noise rolled through the hallway again. More laughter, more glass clinking. But for me, the party was over long before the first toast. And somehow being erased from a photo hurt more than being erased from a room. I didn't go back inside right away. Instead, I pushed open the side door that led out to the garden lounge. The scent of blooming jasmine drifted in the breeze, mixed with faint traces of vanilla candles from the buffet tables. It was quiet out there. Calm. Like a different world from the curated chaos inside. I needed air. Not just oxygen, but space. Space from the digital slap I'd just taken. From the smiley captions and hollow hashtags. From the memory of being intentionally framed out of someone else's narrative. I stood by the edge of the fountain, scrolling through the comments on Marjorie's post again. Each word felt heavier the longer I read. Fake admiration, fabricated praise, performative sisterhood. And then one comment caught my eye. "You've always been the one looking out for her. You're the best big sis ever. I stared at it for a moment too long. Then, without thinking, I whispered aloud to no one but the air. Yeah, just like last time. It wasn't meant to be said, but once it left my mouth, something inside me cracked open. 2 years ago. I hadn't thought about that morning in a long time. Probably because I didn't want to. Back then, I was job hunting hard after taking time off from corporate to help Dad through his heart surgery. I'd landed an interview at Zenith Financial, a major firm in downtown Phoenix. The kind of role that could have reset everything. Full salary, benefits, a clear track back into the game. The night before the interview, I was at Marjorie's for dinner. She poured us wine, asked about my outfit, my resume, even offered to steam my blouse so it didn't wrinkle in the car. She seemed helpful, too helpful. Before bed, I double-checked the interview location. Lincoln Tower, Suite 3204. That's what the email said. But the next morning, as I sat in my car ready to punch in the GPS, I got a text from her. Marjorie. Hey, just a heads up, don't go to Lincoln Tower. It's the Lincoln Corporate Building. They look identical. I got lost there once. Good luck. You'll crush it. I paused, checked the email again, but her confidence, her certainty, made me second-guess myself. I changed the destination and drove across town. By the time I realized the mistake, I was 25 minutes late. I called the front desk at Zenith, apologizing, trying to explain the confusion. But they'd already moved on. The recruiter wouldn't reschedule. I was devastated. When I told Marjorie, her response was a soft gasp and a half laugh. Oh shoot, I must have mixed them up. I was sure it was the corporate building. But hey, everything happens for a reason, right? You'll bounce back. I told myself it was an honest mistake. She didn't mean it. Maybe she really was confused. Maybe she was just trying to help. But now, standing there in that garden, seeing how precisely she could manipulate a moment, a caption, a seating chart, it all clicked. That text wasn't sisterly concern. It was control, dressed up in emojis. She hadn't messed up. She redirected me. Away from opportunity, away from power, away from anything that might have made me too equal. Too threatening. And what made it worse? I believed her. I made myself small in order to keep the peace. The kind of peace that always came at my expense. My stomach churned, not just from the realization, but from the years I spent excusing it, rationalizing it, telling myself that if I was patient, if I was forgiving, if I didn't make waves, someday she'd see me the way she pretended to on Instagram. That day never came, and it wouldn't, because the truth is, Marjorie wasn't careless. She was calculated. She didn't misguide me by accident. She redirected my entire life on purpose. I re-entered the venue through the side entrance, brushing past a waiter who offered me a flute of champagne I didn't take. The music had shifted into something slower now, the kind of ambient jazz that filled in silences too awkward for conversation. I found a small bench near the back bar, partly shaded by a decorative ficus. It was tucked far enough into the corner that no one would notice me, not unless they were looking. And no one was. I was still scrolling through the comments under Marjorie's post when someone's shadow interrupted my screen. Hey, Travis said. I looked up, startled. He had 2 drinks in hand. One of them held out to me. I figured you might need this. I took the glass but didn't drink. He sat beside me, too close, too casual. I've noticed it's been tense tonight, he said, drawing out the word like he wasn't sure it fit. Between you and Marjorie. I kept my face neutral. She told me things have been rough between you two, he went on. Said you've been kind of distant lately, that she's tried to reach out. I laughed, short and dry. She's good at making herself the victim, I replied, letting the bitterness show for the first time that night. He studied me for a second, then tilted his head. I mean, do you think maybe you're just a little jealous? I don't mean that in a harsh way. It's just, that's how it sounded when she talks about you. There it was, that word, jealous, the catch-all defense mechanism for when someone dares to call out injustice in a family, the shield behind which manipulation gets to hide and flourish. I stared into my untouched drink, the fizz having already gone flat. I used to believe she meant well, I said softly. I don't anymore. He didn't answer right away, just shifted awkwardly in his seat. I'm not saying you don't have your side, he added. I just know Marjorie's been under a lot of pressure lately. I turned toward him, finally meeting his eyes. Pressure doesn't give you permission to rewrite someone else's life story. He blinked. I stood, set the drink down on the bar, and walked toward the main room, needing space again, but this time not to breathe. To remember. Across the room, Rachel was laughing with someone near the dessert table, her voice just loud enough to carry over the music. I froze. Rachel. I hadn't thought about her in months, not since she'd vanished. Flashback. A year ago my phone buzzed just after midnight. Rachel's name lit up my screen. She was crying, panicked, said she was 2 months behind on rent, couldn't make her car payment, and was scared she'd lose everything. I didn't even hesitate. I wired her $4,000 the next morning, from my emergency savings, money I'd planned to use for dental work, or to finally take that road trip up the coast. She promised to pay me back. She never did. Weeks passed, then silence. She stopped answering calls, stopped replying to messages. Now here she was, at Marjorie's party dressed in designer, sipping wine like nothing ever happened. I glanced back at Travis, who was now talking to Marjorie again, completely unaware. Of course he was. He only knew the version of me Marjorie curated, the edited one, the difficult one, the ungrateful sister. My chest tightened. It wasn't the money that hurt the most. It was realizing how replaceable I'd always been to the people I thought I was loyal to. I moved to the side of the room, leaned against the wall, eyes locked on the party around me, the performance, the curated narrative, and suddenly I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. At the lies, at the rewriting, at the way everyone seemed so comfortable building an entire version of me that suited their story better than the truth ever did. If I stayed silent again, if I kept swallowing my pride just to make others more comfortable, I'd disappear completely. I felt it, like a line in the sand had been drawn right beneath my heels, and for once, I wasn't stepping back. If no one else will speak the truth, then maybe it's time I did. The air inside had grown thicker, like it had absorbed the tension radiating off me. I drifted toward the courtyard doors, pretending I needed fresh air again, but really, I just needed space. Space from their curated ignorance. As I sat on the stone bench tucked near the lavender hedge, a voice approached softly from behind. Jolene? I turned to find Wanda, our cousin on Mom's side, but more like Switzerland in this war of sisters. She always stayed out of family messes, until now. She looked nervous, her hands wrapped around a folded piece of silk. She sat beside me, smoothing the fabric in her lap like she wasn't sure what to say. I've been holding on to something, she finally whispered. Too long, probably, and maybe I shouldn't be giving it to you now, but I can't pretend I don't see what's happening anymore. I frowned. What is it? She unwrapped the silk carefully, revealing an envelope, the kind with a gold edge and soft paper, my grandmother's stationery. I would have recognized it anywhere. She wrote this for you, Wanda said, right before she passed. Told me to give it to you only if things ever went too far. My hands trembled as I took it. I hesitated. A letter from the dead doesn't land lightly, but something in Wanda's face told me I needed to read it now, not later. I broke the seal. The handwriting was shaky, but familiar. My grandmother never minced words, and this letter was no exception. Jolene, it began. You've always seen Marjorie clearly. That's why she's always tried to blur your reflection. I stopped reading, already breathless. Wanda sat in silence beside me, letting the words work their way through me. It's not your fault, the letter continued. Some people only thrive when others are diminished, and you, my bright girl, never deserved to be made smaller so others could feel bigger. I felt something crack open in my chest. It wasn't pain, it was validation. Proof that I wasn't imagining the years of erasure, of being talked over, written out, moved aside. This letter was truth, left behind like a breadcrumb trail from someone who'd always known. I wiped my cheek before the tears had time to fall. You okay? Wanda asked softly. I nodded, but didn't speak. She took a deep breath, eyes on the envelope now resting in my lap. There's something else, she said. Of course there was. After Grandma passed, Wanda continued, I let Marjorie handle the inheritance. She said she'd combine both of your shares into one account, said she had a better financial advisor. It sounded logical at the time. I blinked slowly. You let her handle mine too? Wanda's eyes filled with something like shame. I trusted her. I thought she'd do the right thing. But after a few months, I never saw your name on the account again. I asked once. She told me not to worry, that you decided to pass your share to her voluntarily. I turned toward her, heat rising in my throat. Voluntarily? She nodded, eyes down. I didn't question it. I wanted to, but I was scared I'd make things worse. There it was again. Silence dressed up as peace. She stole from me, I said quietly, in broad daylight, and you all let her. Wanda didn't argue. She didn't defend. She just looked broken. I stood, sliding the letter back into its envelope. I wasn't going to scream. I didn't need to throw a drink or flip a table. All I needed to do was walk. So I did. I pushed the doors open and walked straight toward Marjorie. She stood near the fireplace, laughing with her circle, hand on Travis's arm like she was center stage. I stepped close enough that only she could hear me, but loud enough that everyone would notice I was speaking. If you ever try to erase me again, I said, my voice low but steady, I'll make sure everyone sees exactly who you are. She blinked, didn't speak, and for the first time in a long time, I knew she understood I wasn't bluffing. She blinked, but didn't speak, because she knew I meant it this time. By the time I stepped back into the room, something had shifted. The lighting hadn't changed, the music was still going, and glasses still clinked, but the energy, the undercurrent, was different, looser, louder, like people had finally surrendered to the night. Laughter rang sharper, more frequent, and champagne had clearly done its job. But beneath the surface, something else had begun to creep in, something heavier. Not everyone felt it yet, but I could see it in a few faces. The ones not caught in the buzz. A furrowed brow here, a side glance there. Whatever tension had been mine alone earlier, it had started to spread. I cut through the room quietly, angling toward the back bar where I could grab some water and disappear into a shadowed corner until I figured out what to do next. I wasn't ready for a confrontation. Not yet. I just needed a moment. But that's when I saw him. Travis stood a little away from the others, half shielded behind one of the floral arrangements near the bar. His posture was stiff, head tilted down toward the phone in his hand. The expression on his face didn't match the rest of the room. Tense, confused, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that made no sense. Definitely not the look of someone basking in his engagement party. When he saw me, his eyes lingered for a beat. Then he lifted his hand in a hesitant wave. An invitation. Hey, he said as I got close. His voice was low. Can I talk to you for a second? I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything yet. He looked around to make sure no one was paying attention, then turned the screen of his phone toward me. I wasn't snooping, he said quickly. I was trying to show her this dumb meme, and this was open. On the screen, a series of text messages lit up in a familiar thread. Marjorie's thread. Still open, still active. Probably from earlier in the day. She must have forgotten to close it. I didn't need to scroll. Just one message, sitting right there in the middle of the screen, told me enough. She's a leech, always has been. She shows up just to cling to the edges of my spotlight. My name wasn't in it. Didn't have to be. We both knew who it was about. My stomach didn't drop out from under me. Not in surprise, anyway. It was more like confirmation, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. I didn't flinch, didn't even look away. Travis did. I didn't know she talked about you like that, he said, voice quieter now. She talks about everyone like that, I replied. My tone was even, almost tired. You're just next. He blinked, taken aback. I thought you two were just competitive. I nearly laughed. It came out more like an exhale. No, Travis, she competes. I've just been surviving. He looked like he wanted to say more, maybe offer some defense or apology. I cut him off with a small shake of my head. You're not the reason she's like this, but you let her stay that way. That's on you. His lips parted, but he didn't argue. Before either of us could say another word, Wanda appeared beside me. I hadn't even seen her coming. She wasn't holding a drink this time. Her hands were full of paper, some printed, others folded, some clipped together with color-coded tabs. She looked calm, serious. "I found these," she said, just loud enough for us to hear, "in Grandma's filing cabinet. I didn't know what they were at first, but—" She handed them to me without fanfare. I flipped through the top few sheets. At first, it looked like normal financial paperwork, emails, transfer records, annotations in the margins. But then I saw the subject lines. One stopped me cold. Nonprofit allocation for birthday event. I froze. I read it again. Then again. This party, this entire event, from the champagne to the venue to the damn flower walls, had been categorized under our grandmother's charitable foundation. Listed as a nonprofit expenditure. This wasn't just unethical, it was fraud, straight-up theft. I looked up from the papers, heart pounding but face calm. My gaze moved across the room until I found her, Marjorie, still glowing in the middle of the crowd, head thrown back in a picture-perfect laugh, still holding court like nothing could touch her. But something had cracked now, and I wasn't going to whisper anymore. I moved toward the center of the room, each step slow and deliberate. As I neared the DJ booth, he instinctively turned down the music. Maybe out of habit, maybe sensing something in my expression. I turned to face the crowd, papers still in hand. "Excuse me," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried, firm, clear. Conversations stalled. Heads turned. Even Marjorie, from across the room, looked up, eyebrows raised. "This party you're all enjoying?" I said, scanning the room. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't a family celebration. It was a scheme, funded by a fake charity submission under my grandmother's name. A ripple moved through the crowd. Small gasps, quick glances, frozen expressions. I held up the papers. Every catered bite, every glass of champagne, paid for by money that was supposed to go to actual nonprofit work. She filed this event under a fraudulent foundation expense. Someone near the bar whispered, "Is she serious?" "Yes," Travis said, loud enough to be heard. "She is." I looked over. He didn't waver. Wanda stepped beside me. Her voice was calm, steady. "She used the trust. Grandma's foundation. Without permission. This party isn't just tacky, it's criminal." Marjorie moved toward us now, her face pale. She looked like she was about to say something, but nothing came out. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Her silence was louder than anything she could have shouted. The room changed. Not in chaos, not in volume. It was subtler than that, like when the air pressure drops before a storm. One person set their drink down and walked away. Another turned from Marjorie and stepped back, slow and deliberate. Her circle, her carefully curated audience, began to thin. First one, then three, then more. People who had just been laughing with her were now avoiding her eyes. She stood there, lips trembling, frozen in place as the truth settled around her like dust. And this time there was no spotlight to cling to. Wanda's hands trembled slightly as she stepped forward, holding a stack of papers like a shield. Her voice cracked once but didn't waver. "She didn't just misfile a party," she said, raising her voice slightly over the growing murmur. "Marjorie created a fake nonprofit and routed the trust through it. This entire event is misappropriated. It's not just dishonest, it's criminal." The room rippled with sound. A cousin from Dad's side, Brian, the one who always cited law textbooks like scripture, spoke up without moving from his seat. "That's misappropriation, and possibly tax fraud." A stunned pause, then a few audible gasps. Marjorie's face turned ghost pale. For a woman who lived on optics, cracks were beginning to show. "No," she finally managed, eyes wide, voice shaky. "That's not what happened. I didn't do anything illegal." Wanda held up the printed email chain. "Then explain why your name is on the tax forms. Explain the EIN number that matches a shell charity registered 3 weeks before the party." A sharp inhale cut through the noise, then another. The energy of the room twisted into something raw, disbelief colliding with amusement, a scandal wrapped in sequins. That's when Marjorie snapped. Her mask didn't just crack, it shattered. "Oh, give me a break," she shouted. "You all love a little drama, don't you?" People flinched at the suddenness. You think you're better than me, Jolene? You're not. You're a leftover. A walking sob story. Her voice climbed. Guests stepped back, eyes wide, hands on phones. Then it happened. She hurled her champagne glass. It missed me by inches, exploding against the floor. Glass and sticky fizz sprayed toward the buffet table. No one moved. Except one guest. A younger woman near the dessert station who held her phone up, already recording. Another voice came from the edge of the room. You might want to stop talking. This is live on Instagram. But Marjorie didn't stop. She kept going. Her words slurred, not from alcohol, but from rage left to ferment too long. She's a parasite, she said. Always has been. She clings to the edges, waiting for someone else to make her interesting. She feeds off pity. She needs to be the victim. That's all she has. Her voice was shrill now. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't say a single word. I didn't have to. Because 5 seconds later, someone pulled up the clip, and by the 10-second mark, it was already posted. The comment section exploded. This is next-level narcissism. She's unraveling, and the camera caught every second. The sister's just standing there like a statue. Queen energy. Marjorie caught sight of the post on someone's phone and lunged, trying to grab it. Don't film me, she shrieked. This is private. But nothing about this night was private anymore. Travis walked past me without saying a word. He slipped the expensive watch she'd bought him off his wrist and set it on the table beside the guest book. That tiny motion was louder than any goodbye. The music still played softly in the background, like a cruel joke. No one laughed now. No one raised a glass. They just watched as the center of the party unraveled in real time, and through it all, I stood still. Not because I couldn't speak, but because I didn't need to. The evidence was everywhere now. And for the first time in her life, Marjorie stood in a room full of people and felt completely alone. I didn't look back. Not when I passed the gift table, cluttered with unopened wine bottles, rumpled tissue paper spilling from glossy bags. Not when I walked by the untouched cake, flawless still, save for a single missing slice, like it was waiting for something that never came. Not even when I heard Travis say my name, softly, almost apologetically, like he didn't know whether he still had the right to. There was nothing left for me in that room. The weight I'd carried for years, every buried feeling, every forced smile, every moment I'd bitten my tongue just to keep the peace, was gone. Not like a balloon drifting away. Not soft. More like a stone being dislodged from my chest. A boulder shoved off the cliff's edge. Nothing left to hold it up. Nothing left to hold me back. I pushed open the double doors and stepped into the night. The Arizona air was cool, crisp in that dry desert way, brushing against my skin like a reset. Above me, the sky stretched wide, dark and clear, scattered with stars that glittered indifferently. They didn't care about family drama or ruined parties. They'd been here before us, and they'd be here long after. It made everything feel smaller, lighter. Right. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps behind me, quick, hesitant. Jolene! I stopped and turned. Wanda stood under the venue's awning, a small bundle in her hands wrapped in a deep burgundy napkin. Her posture was stiff, uncertain, like she'd made a last-minute decision she wasn't sure she'd stick to. I wasn't going to say anything, she said, voice low. But after tonight, after what you did, I think you deserve this. She stepped forward and held it out to me. I took it, confused but quiet. She didn't explain, didn't give me the chance to ask questions. She just gave me a small nod, turned around, and disappeared back through the doors without another word. The bundle felt light, soft. Inside the napkin was an envelope, aged, worn at the corners, the paper yellowed from time and maybe guilt. My name was written across the front in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My mother's. My breath caught. For a long moment, I just stood there under the stars, envelope in hand, everything else suspended. When I finally sat in the driver's seat, I didn't start the car. I didn't even reach for the ignition. The interior light cast a faint glow, quiet and warm, like it knew this was a moment meant for stillness. I unwrapped the napkin and turned the envelope over in my hands. The seal had already been broken. Wanda must have read it, Or at least opened it. Maybe she'd wrestled with the decision to give it to me, afraid of what it might stir up. Maybe she'd held onto it for years, waiting for the right moment. I opened it slowly. The letter was short, 1 page. My name at the top, written with the same care I remembered from childhood. Labels on lunch bags, permission slips, birthday cards. Jolene, I know you probably won't understand why I waited this long. Maybe I don't even understand it myself. But if you're reading this, it means Wanda did the brave thing and gave it to you. I want to tell you something I never had the courage to say out loud. I loved both of my daughters, but I failed you in different ways. I stopped reading, just stopped. My breath came shallow, my heart suddenly loud again, pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. You weren't hard to love, you were easy to overlook, and that was my failure, not yours. I let Marjorie perform, I let her narrate our lives, and I let you shrink. You deserved better, not because you earned it, but because love should never be earned in the first place. My eyes blurred. The words swam. I tried to blink the tears away, but they came faster than I could stop them. A few slipped down my cheek and landed on the page, the ink bleeding slightly where the salt water touched it. But I let it happen. I wasn't crying from heartbreak anymore. This grief was something different, something sharper, but cleaner, like alcohol on an open wound. Burning, yes, but also healing. It hurt, but it clarified. I folded the letter slowly, carefully, and tucked it into my bag. I wasn't going to reread it every day. I didn't need to. Just knowing it existed was enough. Just knowing she'd written it, that she had seen me, even if too late, meant something. I started the engine, but didn't drive. I sat there, breathing, thinking, not about the party I'd just walked away from, or the shocked faces, or the text messages that would be flying by now. Not even about Marjorie, standing alone in the center of the wreckage she built. What mattered was this moment, the quiet inside the car, the silence that finally felt earned, not awkward or heavy, but honest. There was a voice in my head, not loud, not demanding, just present, and it wasn't asking, what now? It was saying, finally, I wasn't contorting myself to fit into someone else's version of the story. I wasn't reaching out for scraps of approval or chasing after the hope that someone might one day see me. My phone buzzed once on the passenger seat. A message from Travis. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time. No anger, no ache, no righteous triumph, just peace. I powered off the phone and set it aside. And in that quiet space, something unexpected took root. Something soft but strong. Something that felt like freedom. Not just freedom from Marjorie. Freedom from the roles she cast me in. From the scripts I never agreed to. From the shadows I never belonged in to begin with. I wasn't anyone's backdrop anymore. This wasn't an escape. It was a reclamation. It had been a week. 7 days since I stepped out of that banquet hall and into a version of my life that didn't revolve around being tolerated. 7 mornings where I didn't wake up replaying conversations in my head, trying to twist myself into someone more likable, more palatable, more invisible. In those 7 days, the world hadn't stopped, but Marjorie's had cracked wide open. The video went viral by morning. A cousin with a decent TikTok following had posted it with the caption, "Family drama gone corporate." Last I checked, it had over 800,000 views and counting. The comments were relentless. Some cruel, some vindicating, all of them honest. By Wednesday, one of the nonprofits Marjorie used to volunteer for had issued a public statement. We are terminating all association due to clear ethical violations. The email made its way to my inbox via someone I barely remembered from high school who now worked in PR. They wrote, "I thought you'd appreciate seeing this." Travis moved out of their shared apartment the next day. Wanda mentioned it over the phone, carefully, like she wasn't sure if I'd want to hear. I didn't ask for details. By Friday, Marjorie's Instagram was gone. Just gone. No public apology, no explanation. Just the digital equivalent of a house with the lights off and curtains drawn. And me? I was still here. Still quiet, but not silent. That Friday evening, I sat in my apartment, barefoot on the hardwood, folding laundry while an old Billie Holiday record played in the background. It was domestic, peaceful, unremarkable, And that felt revolutionary. My phone buzzed, a voicemail. I played it on speaker, letting it echo through the room. Jolene, it's Travis. I just want to say I'm sorry for believing what she said, for not asking more questions. You didn't deserve any of it. I see that now. I hope you're okay. I really do. I didn't save it. I didn't delete it either. Instead, I reached into my drawer and pulled out the letter. My mother's letter. I'd read it every night since Wanda gave it to me. Not out of obsession, but because every line seemed to light a part of me I didn't know had dimmed. That night, I framed it, hung it above my writing desk, just below the window where the sunlight hit around noon. The next morning, I opened a new bank account, just in my name. I put in exactly $47,200. That was how much Wanda estimated had been diverted from my inheritance. The money wasn't from a lawsuit or a returned check. It came from me, months of side gigs, freelance copywriting, and the emergency fund I rebuilt brick by brick after Marjorie had bulldozed it. Then I wrote a check, same amount, made out to Sunridge Women's Resource Center. No return address, no name, just one line in the memo, you deserve better. I mailed it from the blue box down the block, then stopped for a croissant on the way home. I ate it while sitting in the park, watching strangers laugh like they didn't know the world could collapse over birthday cake and passive aggression. A little boy dropped his balloon. I caught it just before it floated too high. His mother smiled, reaching out for it. "Thanks," she said. "That was sweet of you." I nodded. "Sometimes you just need someone to see you." She tilted her head, maybe sensing more in my tone than I meant to reveal, then turned back to her kid. And I walked on, past the park, past the bakery, past the quiet stretch of houses where porch lights flickered on at dusk, not toward anything dramatic. Just forward. I used to fight for a seat at their table. Now I'm building my own. Looking back, I don't regret walking away. Not because it was easy, but because, for the first time, I chose myself without asking for permission. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the loudest are the very ones who silence you the most. And family? It isn't about blood. It's about truth, safety, and being seen for who you are without needing to shrink to fit their version of you. To anyone watching this who's ever felt like the outsider in their own story, know this. You don't need to fight for scraps of respect from those who benefit from your silence. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to walk away. And you are never too old, too late, or too broken to rewrite your role in the story. Now I'm curious. Have you ever been made to feel small by someone who was supposed to protect you? What did you do? Let me know in the comments. If this story spoke to you, even just a little, drop a 1 in the chat or tell me where you're watching from. And if you didn't like it, tell me why. Your perspective matters too. And hey, if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and honest, hit that subscribe button and be the first to hear the next one. Thanks for being here. You didn't have to be, but I'm so glad you were. Hi there, I'm Rishima. My daughter kicked me out the moment she found out I lost my job. No warning, no sympathy, just gone. They told people I was unstable. Behind my back, they forged documents, locked me out of my own bank accounts, sold my house without a word, all while smiling in my face like nothing happened. But what they didn't know is that I had a secret fortune and a plan. The kitchen was quiet that morning. Too quiet, really. I stirred my coffee, pretending not to notice how different the house felt since I'd lost my job. I hadn't told Alyssa yet. Not because I was ashamed, but because I knew how she could be when things didn't go according to her plan. I needed a moment to figure out what came next before I gave her the truth. Alyssa always liked control. She said it helped her stay centered, whatever that meant. But lately, she'd been asking questions that felt more like probes than concern. "Mom, do you still bank through that old app? You should let Eric help. It's safer that way," she said, pouring orange juice at the Sunday brunch table. "We can help pay the utilities for now if it's easier for you." I blinked. It was subtle, framed as love, but my stomach tightened. "I'm fine," I said carefully. "I've got things managed." Eric smiled, that thin, overly polite smile I never trusted. "Rishima, no pressure, just Having us help monitor things might take a load off. Their tone was light, but I knew manipulation when I heard it. Alyssa called it simplifying. I called it what it was, soft control. Still, I hesitated. Then I gave in. Just until I sort a few things out, I said, handing Alyssa my phone to set up access. Later that week, I found Eric's car parked 2 streets down. Odd, too far to be casual. He didn't ring the bell, he didn't text. But I spotted him through the blinds, dressed sharp, holding a manila envelope, walking toward a different house. I watched until he disappeared. Something didn't feel right. That night, I went to log into my bank account. The interface had changed. A new security question. Alyssa's birthday. I sat frozen. My gut told me this wasn't just about helping with bills. Then yesterday, I overheard Alyssa whispering to Eden. I couldn't catch the words, but the way she stiffened when I entered, how Eden looked down, suddenly silent, made me feel like a guest in my own home. They were planning something, and for the first time, I couldn't pretend everything was okay. The next morning, I passed by the kitchen just as Alyssa leaned in and whispered something to Eden. The girl nodded solemnly. Then Alyssa glanced up and spotted me. Her smile flickered for half a second before she covered it with that sweet but empty tone she always used when she didn't want to be questioned. "Morning, Mom. We're just talking about summer camps." I nodded slowly, not saying a word. I wasn't born yesterday. Later that week, I found an invitation tucked inside Eden's backpack when I helped her look for her lost pencil case. It was a birthday party invite, for her best friend, not her own. Confused, I asked Alyssa when we'd be planning Eden's birthday. "Oh, yeah, it's going to be small this year," she replied without even looking up from her phone. "Just a few kids at the skating rink. They've got strict head counts. Can't squeeze everyone in, you know." My chest tightened. "Everyone?" I asked. She finally looked up. "Don't take it personal, Mom. It's not that serious." Not that serious. I had been there when Eden was born. I cut her umbilical cord myself. And now I wasn't even serious enough to be at her birthday? That night, while folding laundry, I overheard Eden humming the birthday song to herself in her room. She sounded excited, unaware I wouldn't be there. I closed the dryer door slowly, fighting back the burn in my throat. A few days later, I found a pamphlet in the trash, torn in half. A therapy clinic for children. At first, I brushed it off. But when I checked Eden's room, her calendar had little heart stickers on Wednesdays. I asked Alyssa about it. "Oh, that? It's just something the school suggested. Eden's been a little emotionally overloaded." "Because of me?" I asked, more to confirm what I already knew. Alyssa shrugged. "The therapist thinks some of the messages she's getting at home are conflicting. We're just trying to give her some clarity." Clarity. That's what they were calling it. That night, I watched old videos of Eden wobbling through her first steps on the patio, falling into my arms. I remembered the way she used to call me Baba before she could even say Grandma. The weight of silence pressed into my chest. I didn't say anything. Not to Alyssa, not to Eric, not even to Eden. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I stayed quiet, I could still salvage something. But the silence didn't last. Because the next thing I heard was Alyssa's voice telling me I needed to leave. She didn't yell. She didn't even flinch. She just stood at the edge of the hallway with her arms crossed and said, "Mom, I think it's time you started looking for your own place." The words didn't land at first. I waited for a smirk, a laugh, some hint that she was joking. But her eyes stayed flat, unbothered. I opened my mouth to respond, but my throat was too tight. When I finally spoke, it sounded smaller than I meant. "I've been trying to get back on my feet. It's just been a hard season." Eric stepped out of the kitchen like he'd been waiting for his cue. "That's exactly why we're suggesting a clean transition. Maybe something more tailored to your stage of life, like senior housing." "Senior housing?" I echoed, stunned. Alyssa didn't blink. "It's not a punishment, Mom. You're not getting any younger and you're not working." There it was. I swallowed the heat in my chest. "You're right. I haven't told you. I was laid off 3 months ago, restructuring. But I have savings." "You should have told us," she snapped, the edge breaking through now. "You let us carry everything while you— What? Took a break? That's not fair." "You didn't carry anything," I said quietly. I paid off this house. Eric placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. No one's attacking you, Rishima. We're just suggesting it's time to downsize. It's healthier for everyone. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I went upstairs, closed my door, and stared at the walls I'd painted myself 2 summers ago. That evening, I walked out to get the mail. Tucked between flyers and bills was a glossy real estate postcard, advertising my home. The listing had already been printed, price and square footage neatly outlined. A contact number. A caption. Ready for quick close. I nearly dropped it right there on the sidewalk. Back inside, I checked the kitchen counter. The papers I'd signed last week, when Alyssa said she needed help organizing utilities, weren't just for electricity or water. They included power of attorney. They had planned this, together, quietly, efficiently. In my room, I pulled the old suitcase from the closet, the one I hadn't used since Eden's last out-of-state recital. I laid it open on the bed and sat beside it, fingers gripping the worn handle. I had poured decades into this family, sacrificed everything, and now I was being erased, one paper at a time. I didn't cry when I left. I didn't even slam the door. I rolled my suitcase out to the curb, stood under the hot New Jersey sun, and called a cab. It felt like every step scraped something raw inside me, but I walked anyway. For the next few days, I stayed at a modest motel near Route 24, the kind of place with weak coffee in the lobby and curtains that didn't quite close all the way. I kept to myself. No calls, no messages. Silence from Alyssa and Eric, just as I expected. But then, on the 7th day, Alyssa texted. Brunch tomorrow? Just us. My treat. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Sure. When I arrived at the cafe, she stood up and gave me a hug like nothing had happened. Her smile was sweet, her eyes practiced. Mom, you look great. Are you okay? I've been worried sick. I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Over quiche and overpriced lattes, she leaned in. Listen, I've been thinking. You don't have to rush into anything. You can stay at the house until you figure things out. I nodded slowly, letting her words linger between us. That's generous, considering how quick you were to push me out. Her smile faltered. We were under stress, Eden's schedule, Eric's firm going through changes. Things got tense. Of course, I said. And the house listing? That was a mistake, she said too fast. Eric jumped the gun. Then came the real reason for the meeting. So, did your company offer any severance? She asked, stirring her coffee with rehearsed nonchalance. Sometimes they do that for senior execs. Or any pensions, maybe? There it was. I leaned back and folded my hands. Funny how concerned you are now. You called me a burden last week. Now I'm your mom again. Her face tightened. That's not fair. No, I said, voice cool. What's unfair is being thrown out by the same child I once gave up my career to raise. She looked away. I stood, grabbed my purse. Thanks for brunch. Let's not pretend anymore. Next time you want something, just ask directly. I left the cafe with my chin high. This wasn't pain anymore. This was clarity. The following morning, I walked into the coffee shop near my motel, craving nothing more than caffeine and quiet. But fate had other plans. There it was, front and center on the magazine rack beside the register, Modern American Family Monthly. Alyssa and Eric on the glossy cover, smiling with arms wrapped around Eden like a Norman Rockwell painting brought to life. The headline, Love, Care, and Generations, The Norris Family Way. I stood frozen, heart pounding like a war drum. The article inside painted a fairy tale. Alyssa, the devoted daughter caring for her elderly mother, and Eric, balancing law work while nurturing a blended household built on empathy. They even described Eden as thriving, thanks to the emotional support of her parents during Grandma's adjustment. Not once was I quoted, named, or even shown in the photos. I wasn't part of the story. I was the backdrop. My hands shook as I left the cafe, magazine folded under my arm like a piece of stolen evidence. That evening, I returned to the house. Not as a guest, not as a mother, but as someone who refused to be erased. Alyssa was in the kitchen, arranging flowers for another dinner party. Eric sat at the counter, phone in hand. I dropped the magazine between them. Cute, I said. Did the photographer crop me out, Or did you hand them the script with me already dead? Alyssa didn't flinch. It's just PR, Mom. You know how that works? Eric smirked. No one reads these things seriously. It's brand building. I leaned in, voice low and clear. You want to build a brand? Fine. But if you keep using me like a marketing prop, I'll burn the whole image down. You try to brand me? I'll destroy the shelf you stand on. Eric raised an eyebrow, but I caught the flicker. Nerves. They weren't used to me talking like this. I wasn't grieving anymore. I was watching and documenting. That night, I opened a new folder on my laptop and named it Contingency. I uploaded every receipt, email, voicemail. If they wanted a PR war, I'd fight with facts. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to be precise. I didn't even make it to the kitchen before my phone started vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. 23 missed messages. A dozen emails flagged urgent. My stomach tightened before I even unlocked the screen. And there it was. My face, distorted and cropped mid-blink, smeared across every social feed imaginable. The video was barely a minute long, but it showed me pacing in the backyard, voice warped and pitch shifted, muttering nonsense I never remembered saying. The caption read, "When dementia wins, what families really go through." My heart pounded, not from confusion, but rage. It was edited, chopped up, taken from an afternoon where I had been talking to my plants, venting into the wind, thinking no one was around. I scrolled through the comments. Someone call adult services. Poor daughter. No one should have to deal with that. Classic narcissistic boomer meltdown. I couldn't breathe. Then came the second link, emailed anonymously. A video, more polished than the last, showed a deepfake of me sitting at a desk, confessing to mishandling my finances, draining family trust accounts, and begging forgiveness. Even the blinking matched. They'd studied me. Eric. Only someone who knew my voice pattern, my gestures, would fake it that well. This wasn't some troll. This was war. But I didn't cry. I didn't call them. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my dining table, opened my laptop, and hit record. My face was bare, my voice unshaken. My name is Rashima Walker, I began, and I'm not senile. I'm not unstable. I am a woman who raised her daughter alone, who worked as a CFO for 28 years without one HR violation, and who is now being publicly destroyed for stepping out of their control. I showed documents, my job termination letter, bank transfers I never authorized, the power of attorney forms signed under false pretenses. My lawyer, silent beside me, nodded once at the camera. I ended the video with one sentence. You played with the wrong mother. I uploaded it to every platform I knew. Within 3 hours, the comments started shifting. Wait, this feels off. She sounds lucid. That deepfake angle is terrifying. The tide had turned. Not completely, but enough. The mail arrived later than usual that Friday. I almost didn't check it, too drained from the week's chaos. But something about the stiff white envelope on top, my name printed in a font too formal for junk, pulled me in. Inside was a packet, boarding information, uniform checklist, dormitory map, acceptance letter. Eden had been enrolled at a private boarding school in Vermont. I flipped through the documents, scanning for any familiar signature. My name was nowhere. Not as guardian, not as emergency contact, not even as someone authorized to pick up. She was gone. No goodbye, no warning, just gone. I called the school immediately. I'm her grandmother, I told the front desk, trying to keep my voice steady. I've raised her. I need to speak with her. I'm sorry, ma'am. Only the listed custodians have access to her communication schedule. Custodians, not family, custodians. I hung up and stared at the kitchen wall for a full minute, the silence in the house, now a hollow I couldn't fill. Eden, my baby girl, had been taken from me, and they hadn't even had the decency to lie to my face about it. I didn't think. I just drove. Their front door opened before I could knock. Alyssa stood there in yoga pants and a pastel sweatshirt, sipping from a glass with a lemon wedge. You shouldn't just show up like this, she said. We've moved on from all this drama. I didn't even blink. Where's Eden? She glanced inside, didn't invite me in. At school, where she's safe, where she can grow. You sent her away to erase me. A pause. Then, cool as ice. It's what's best for her. I stepped closer, voice low and sharp. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Eric appeared behind her. This is harassment, he said, lips twitching into that smug, rehearsed grin. You show up here again, we'll file a restraining order. But I saw it. That flicker behind his eyes. They thought they had the upper hand. Let them. Because that night, I handed my lawyer the file I'd been building for months, and I said the words I'd been waiting to say. Burn them to the ground, legally. My lawyer didn't flinch when I handed over the flash drive. He slid it into his laptop, scanned the folders I labeled hijack, house, and digital attack, and nodded. It's all here, I said flat. Emails, forged authorizations, video evidence, even the property transfer records. They took everything, and they did it behind my back. He looked up from the screen. Are you ready for this? I didn't blink. File it all, no mercy. By Monday, the legal complaint was public record. Eric and Alyssa were named for fraudulent misuse of power of attorney, misrepresentation of property rights, and emotional elder abuse. A separate claim was filed for defamation tied to the doctored videos. Everything was airtight. They weren't prepared for this kind of precision. That same afternoon, I went live. Sitting in front of the same camera I'd used weeks earlier, I walked viewers through every document. I showed the real estate listing for my home, posted 3 weeks before they told me to move out. My signature? A forgery. I played a voicemail of Eric asking the realtor to keep the listing quiet until Mom's out. And I showed bank logs, proof that utilities hadn't just been consolidated for ease, but rerouted to Alyssa's account. You want to know the truth? I asked the camera. Here it is. The video exploded. Comments rolled in like a tidal wave. This woman is sharp. I believed the daughter until now. That fake family brand is a con job. By evening, the internet had flipped. News outlets picked it up. Hashtags trended. Some called me brave. Others called me dangerous, in the way only a woman who refuses to stay silent can be. Later that night, across the state line, in a quiet dormitory hallway, Eden scrolled through my video. Her roommate watched over her shoulder, murmuring, "That's your grandma." Eden didn't answer. She just hit replay. The sun hadn't risen yet when I heard the soft scrape at my door. I thought it might be the wind, until I saw it. A single envelope slipped underneath. My name written in careful, looping handwriting I knew by heart. Eden. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, just staring at it, the corners of my eyes stinging. It had been months since I last saw her face in person, and now all I had were 5 ounces of paper, maybe less, but heavy enough to pin me in place. I finally peeled it open. The note was short, handwritten in blue ink with tiny smudges where she must have hesitated. Hi, Baba. I saw everything. Can we talk sometime? I miss your pancakes. I miss you. I held the letter to my chest, eyes closed, my breath caught. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't a reunion, but it was a crack in the wall I thought would stand forever. Later that week, the legal tide came crashing down. Eric was indicted for falsifying legal documents and submitting deepfakes in a public defamation campaign. The court's response was swift. He wasn't smirking anymore. Alyssa's clinic lost its largest sponsors within 48 hours. Her modern family branding evaporated. Her license wasn't revoked yet, but she was placed under review by the state board. And no amount of gloss or glamour could mask the truth anymore. I reclaimed the deed to my home. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party. I just walked through the front door, turned on the lights, and sat down at the same kitchen table where it all began. This time, I wasn't being offered fake brunch or veiled threats. I was alone and free. Weeks later, I launched the Walker Fund, a modest nonprofit dedicated to women over 50 facing job loss and isolation. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. Eden's letter still rests in my nightstand drawer. I haven't answered. Not yet. Some wounds need air before they close. One crisp morning in late November, I poured myself coffee, pulled on a sweater, and sat beneath the oak tree in my backyard. The leaves rustled above, golden and fading. No phones, no cameras, just me, and the wind. They'd tried to erase me, but I rewrote my ending. In the quiet that followed, I learned something no courtroom or paycheck ever taught me. Dignity isn't given, it's taken back. I lost everything they thought mattered: status, money, even my role in their lives. But what they underestimated was the strength that grows in silence, the kind of strength that doesn't yell, it acts. If you're watching this and you've been dismissed, underestimated, or pushed aside, whether by your own family, workplace, or society, hear me clearly. Your worth isn't defined by who walks away. It's shaped by how you choose to stand. Sometimes, the people closest to us won't understand our value until we stop explaining and start rebuilding. What would you do if the ones you raised tried to erase you? Would you walk away? Or would you fight back with truth? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this story touched something in you, leave a 1 inch in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. And hey, if you didn't like it, I still want to know why. What would you have done differently? Don't forget to subscribe if you want more true stories that stir the heart, challenge the mind, and remind us what really matters. This isn't just entertainment, it's real life. And sometimes, real life is the best teacher.